Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
Good afternoon, it's Friday. Always look forward to the weekend. I can't wait for this weekend especially. I am Graham Duffy, your host. We are live on Independence Live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. And tonight I'm joined by an all-star cast, far better than Sky Sports News. He knows that. Firstly, it's a man who gets to see his team play at Hampden for the first time this season, even though it's not a semi-final or final. Stephen Rayside. Stephen, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. I think I'll be in Hampden after 60 minutes tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to it at all.
You'll be fine.
No.
Next up, a man who was at St Mirren yesterday to watch his team get a draw with Bram, which come out very shortly. Robbie, how's things, mate?
All right, guys, how we done?
All good, mate, all good. And finally, a man who we've not seen for a little while, but he's back on today, hoping that the legend David Gray is going to last a lot longer than his last few managers. It's Mikey. Mikey, how are you, man?
Surviving so far. Yeah.
Good stuff. I think we might be joined later on by Alan Risk, a Falkirk fan, who will talk us about the game tomorrow between Falkirk and Dunfermline. We will obviously talk about the European games, especially as soon as Robbie's here. We'll talk about the games that are happening this weekend. But the thing I like doing live shows is you get to react to stuff that's happened during the day. And today it was announced that Scotland, I was going to say Scotland captain, he's not. Celtic captain Callum McGregor has retired from international football at 31-year-old. He's had 63 caps, scoring 3 goals, but he did touch about the fitness and stuff. I am very surprised, and I was very surprised. Start with Robbie. Robbie, are you surprised by that news that McGregor's decided to retire?
I'm very surprised. I mean, he's had, I think, a 16-year international career overall. I mean, that is a long time for a player to play international football. I think he just wants to focus on Celtic now, but, you know, I thought he was a very pivotal partner in midfield for Scotland. You know, he's probably one of the first names you put in the team sheet when you're going to predict a Scotland lineup. So I am very surprised that he's chose to retire this early.
He's been playing international football basically for 18 years at all levels. He's obviously had 2 European tournaments, which was fantastic. But when that news came out, I was genuinely surprised. Mikey, what's your thoughts about that?
Well, I actually know someone who's known it for quite a while because they have sort of connections around it. Well, not known it, but it was kind of in the background. To be honest, I'm surprised, but it's maybe not the biggest loss Scotland could have. He's a big player, obviously, but there's other players in his position that will be very important as well. But it was a bit surprising when it first kind of came out, because he is obviously such a important player in the Celtic team, being their captain and coming into the Scotland team. He's obviously got a big lot of leadership with him, so who knows what the impact will be, but it was a bit of a surprise hearing it.
Stephen, 31 seems very young to retire. He wasn't brilliant at the Euros, but then neither, to be honest, nobody really was. But it's still a surprise for me. And I know that you put in the group chat maybe a chance for Lewis Ferguson now. It will give other players a chance, but I still think it's a massive blow for Scotland that he's retired, I think.
Oh, it's a loss, no doubt it's a loss. I mean, but I think from Callum's point of view, I mean, he probably plays every minute for Celtic, and then in a Scotland jersey, he plays every minute for us as well. So I think if Callum's looking at it, he's in his 30s now, he's probably took this hit so that he can get longer out his career at Celtic, and I understand it. I think that he looked leggy at the Euros, and I think that can be said about a number of players, but I think because of the amount of minutes that he plays, both for club and country, he very rarely gets that opportunity to rest, and he's not just a football player, he's a human being as well. I mean, he must be away constantly, so I think retiring early makes sense for him, because it will give him that wee bit more time to spend with his family out with the football. So, but no, well done on a great career. I think he scored our first goal at a major tournament since '98, helped us get to Nations League A and back-to-back Euros. So I think he can be very proud of what he's done in a Scotland jersey over the course of his international career.
Yeah, good afternoon to Sandy on YouTube. He said thought he'd be there for 2 or 3 more years. Akin did as well. I mean, I'm in quite a few different group chats, Robbie, and when that news broke, some people were saying, oh, this is good news. I think we're going to miss that influence that he's got in midfield. I think he's a very, very good player. I think him and Billy Gilmore in that midfield are very important. I think, for me, it's disappointing that he's retired.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the field, obviously, you're missing a great player in the midfield, a real pivotal part of our midfield. but you need to just look off the park as well. I mean, he is one of the main leaders in that Scotland dressing room, so to lose a big figure like that, it will hurt the players as well as on the park. So it's a big loss for Scotland.
Mikey, how do you think McGregor will be remembered for Scotland?
I mean, obviously the goal against Croatia will be the big one. I think out with that, I think more of his legacy comes from Celtic. I think that he has had obviously the impact in the Scotland squad, but I don't think there's that many sort of hugely standout moments he's had. Obviously the Croatia goal is probably the main one, but I just think that losing him as a team captain, you kind of want to have as many leaders on the park at the same time as possible, and losing him will be a loss without a doubt. But I think I guess one of the good things is he never really stands out a massive amount of games. When he's playing well, he kind of just fits into the team, and I think that's what you need when you've got the players who can come up with the big moments, like for example McTominay. So I think it'll be a big miss, but I don't think there's many standout huge moments in a Scotland shirt that come to mind apart from obviously the Croatia goal.
Stephen, you mentioned Lewis Ferguson, but do you think anyone else could maybe break into that midfield now McGregor's retired?
I mean, you've got the youngsters coming through, Miller, Watson, Barron. Maybe it opens up another position in the squad for one of them to be at least involved. Ryan Jack still without a club, I mean, who's been involved in the Scotland setup as well. So the longer he goes without a club, that almost kind of opens another space. But I think the point that kind of the lads have touched on in midfield is not an area in which we're struggling with players coming through. So yeah, I think it does offer an opportunity for the likes of Lennon Miller, a David Watson, a Connor Barron to kind of come in and stake their claim for the space in that squad.
I believe Ryan Jack was at the Smythe Stadium yesterday. Robbie, is that something that you would happily take at St Mirren?
I think it's a bit of experience that we need in the midfield. I'll touch on it later, but I thought Boyd Muntz probably had one of his worst games in a St Mirren shirt last night. So I think having that experience, maybe with O'Hara, would be brilliant for us.
Absolutely. I mean, I just quickly, obviously, because McGregor's retired, I do want to touch on Scotland, and I know we'll do this more later on. But we've got Nations League games to come up, very difficult Nations League games. And I have, again, heard a lot of folks saying that Steve Clarke shouldn't get these Nations League games. He's going to now. But, I mean, for Steve Clarke, especially, Mikey, how big a blow it will be for him to not have a guy like McGregor in that midfield?
I mean, it will be a blow. As I said, he does offer the leadership. I will say that I am very much against the idea of Steve Clarke being sacked. However, I do think that, as obviously Stephen's touched on and I have already, I think we're not light in that area. So if you're going to lose a player of his influence before a Nations League campaign, then it probably would be a midfielder you'd want to lose. I would say though that how will that impact the dressing room during Scotland games at half time if there's maybe a goal down? Obviously, you never really know the impact it actually has, but I think it'll be a loss, but I don't think it'll massively impact things, and especially when we're playing teams that I don't hugely expect us to beat. I don't think that we'll. I think that we can get a win out of the Poland game without a doubt. Croatia look a bit ropey at the moment, but I think that it won't play a massive impact in my opinion. At least straight in the next few games.
Good afternoon to Caden on YouTube. Miller and Watson will be on the Scotland team in the next 3 years. I would probably say, Stephen, that they should be in it earlier than that, given how well they've progressed.
This comes back to this Scottish mentality. I think there is a putting players in too early. I think we are afraid of doing it as a country, and I don't think we're brave enough. You look at the likes of Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal, the performances that those two had at the Euros for Spain. I mean, you could go into other nations. I'm sure Germany have brought through youngsters as well, and I just feel that we are cautious to do so, and I don't understand it. I think that with the Nations League coming up, it's a perfect opportunity to try and have conversations with the likes of Harvey Barnes. I know he's maybe not the youngest; he's kind of an experienced player in the Premier League. Have conversations with him, get Ben Doak involved, get the likes of Miller, Watson, get them in and around it, because I think we're almost at this transitional stages now with the national side, where there's a lot of people getting older. So I think it's good for us to kind of and good for Steve Clarke if he's going to maintain any longevity as Scotland manager to show that he can try something new and bring other players through.
Robert, Stephen mentioned Harvey Barnes, and I did see on Twitter a few days ago they're still not decided yet. I mean, if Harvey Barnes was to say, do you know what, I want to play for Scotland, is he someone that you'd have on the team straight away?
I mean, I think Harvey Barnes is a very good player. I think he's one that could go into the team. I feel like we should maybe, I don't know if we should maybe try and rush him and make a decision. I mean, we do have these Nation League games coming up. Does Steve Clarke maybe say to him, look, make a decision here. Do you want to come play for Scotland for your future, or do you want to, just let him make a decision quickly? Because if we can get that type of player in the dressing room and playing games, then it's only a positive for Scotland.
Mikey, where do you stand on the Harvey Barnes thing? Because there's no doubt he's a talented player. I mean, if we get the chance to put him in that Scotland team, I think you've got to think somebody with that quality would actually be very good in that Scotland side.
I would say so, but I think if there's a decision to be made on his end, then he's clearly not all in it for the Scotland team. If it's something to increase his career, then it's a bit. I mean, international football is a bit different than it used to be, because you can kind of maybe not pick and choose, but you have more of an option there. But for my thing, if you're not all in wanting to play for the Scotland team, then you probably shouldn't be there. If there's a decision to pick between them, then are they going to have the same passion and drive for the badge than someone who's obviously maybe like a Lennon Miller or a David Watson coming through, who will give 110% for the badge because they know exactly what it's like. I don't think Harvey Barnes has lived in Scotland. I don't think he's had any real genuine sort of connection to Scotland within his life. So, I mean, obviously I'd take him for the footballing side, but will he have the same sort of drive? I'm not fully convinced, especially due to the fact that he hasn't made a quick decision on it, meaning that he's obviously deciding what's best for his career rather than what's best for him.
Stephen, it's a fair point Mikey makes there. Do you know, if you're not committed to playing for Scotland, then as much as he's a really good player, is that somebody you want in the dressing room? Oh, and Stephen's gone. We will get back to that when Stephen does come back. But just to move away from Callum McGregor and Scotland, other news that came out today, which I'm actually quite happy with. Stephen Naismith and his coaching staff have announced new contracts till the summer of 2026. Now, had you asked me that end of last season or kind of halfway through last season, I would have said, no, don't do that, it's bad news. But I'm delighted that they've signed those new deals. Robbie, as an outsider looking in, good news for Hearts.
I think it can only be described as good news for Hearts. I mean, you've said it. If you asked the Hearts fan a year ago whether they wanted it, they probably would have said no. But, Stephen Naismith still has a lot to learn. He takes it game by game. Obviously, a very good start of the season. But I think he's a very, very good coach. And he's still a very young coach as well. So it can only be good news for Hearts and many, many years to come for Naismith at Hearts, hopefully, for you guys.
I will come back to that, but Stephen's back. Stephen, I was just talking about the fact that obviously it's Mikey made a good point about Harvey Barnes there. If he's not yet committed to Scotland, then is that something that you want in the dressing room?
You need players that are 100% committed. That's something that I would 100% agree with Mikey on. He will add quality to the team, but again, if there's that hesitation, but I kind of trust Steve Clarke with it, because I don't think Steve Clarke would bring someone in who wasn't 100% committed and who wasn't playing fully for the jersey. So if Steve believes in it, then bring him in. But I do think we need another dimension. I do think we need another option to play. I think it was evident how missing that was in the Euros. So I think we do need to get the likes of Harvey Barnes in and the likes of Ben Doak in and around the squad, just in case a plan A isn't working, Graham, to give us that plan B. It was so evident in the summer. So if Steve's getting the time, I need to see Steve making the changes. And if I'm wrong, I will hold my hands up and say, fair play to you, Steve Clarke. You've come out and you've changed it. But if you stick with the status quo, then I don't see us making that next progression as a national side.
Apparently, Dundee United are in talks with Ryan Jack, from what Alexander says, which wouldn't be a bad thing. But just going back on the Hearts, because as I mentioned, there are Stephen Naismith and the coaching staff of Frankie McAvoy, Gordon Forrest and Paul Gallagher have signed contracts to 2026. I mean, Mikey, I kind of said previously that then towards kind of last season, around November, December time, I was very critical. I wanted Naismith sacked. And then come December, I looked at our fixtures. We got beat by Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and I looked at our fixtures and thought, Celtic, St Mirren, Hibs, this is going to be a disaster. We then beat Celtic, went 12 games unbeaten, and I thought, fair enough, he's turned it around. Good performance last week. I mean, what do you think about the fact that the coaching staff have now signed that new deal to 2026?
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be a good sort of vote of confidence for the sort of managerial staff that they're doing a good job. But let's be completely honest, manager contracts don't really mean a lot in football at the moment. You could get a 5-year deal and be out by November. So, especially with a club the size of Hearts and the expectation that they've sort of done upon themselves for this season, if it all ends up going wrong by December, then I don't have any doubt that there will be change done if the club's not on the right track, rightly or wrongly. I would say it's probably not the best idea, but still, I think that giving the new manager a contract is always giving the manager a new contract is always a sort of a confidence boost for them and the staff. But I don't think it means as much, especially if you're a club like, for example, Hearts, who, if a big club down in England or even a Celtic or Rangers comes calling, then sometimes you never know, they could jump ship. But I mean, it is obviously a positive bit of news for Hearts fans, because that's the direction that they seem is the best. But I wouldn't be exactly expecting him to see out the contract if we're going off of past sort of experiences.
It does bring that stability to Hearts that we know we've got them there for the next few seasons. But I think as football fans, Stephen, as we all know, we are very fickle, and all you've got to do is look at Motherwell. 15 games without a win. If anybody was going to sack the manager, it would have been Motherwell, but they didn't. They didn't react. They let him stay, and he's done a really good job. So it does just go to show that, for myself, for example, maybe at times we do need to get behind the manager and not react quickly.
I think you've got a point there, but I think you also need to see the direction in which a manager is taking a club and the outside factors that are making a manager's job harder. For example, when we were on that run under Kettlewell, I think we had so many key players injured, and that just makes his job a hell of a lot more difficult. The thing that I will say with Stephen Naismith, I mean, we had discussions on here last season. I think it was in about October time. You weren't happy with the way things were going. I think since then you can see an identity about Hearts, and I think that's the biggest difference. Another thing that I would say is you can also see that the recruitment that he's done has been great. We said that Hearts were missing creative midfielders. He's brought in the likes of Danda, the likes of Spittle, Penrice. Had a fantastic game, and that's before they even get to your other fullback, Taylor, by the way, who I thought was just incredible.
He's the best, but
amazing. So I think that the outside factors that Hearts fans need to take into consideration this season as European football and the hold that's going to have on the team. Whether you keep Lawrence Shankland, that'll be interesting as well. That's another factor that may come into play. So I think you need to weigh everything up as a supporter. And the biggest comparison that I can make them is it's why I wanted Hamill to go, because I didn't see where Hamill was going with the team. Whereas I could kind of see what Kettlewell was trying to do. I just felt Kettlewell was hampered. But the two of them went on terrible runs. But the difference is I could see Kettlewell's plan. I couldn't see Hamill's, and that's why I had different opinions on the two.
It's a very good point, Robbie, that Stephen makes there about having a plan, because there were times last season I thought, I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. But the one caveat I will say is it does help when you've got a guy like Lawrence Shankland up front who is banging and goes left, right, and centre. That is going to help anybody.
Oh, of course. I mean, the problem for Hearts now is when do you lose Shankland, and how can you replace a guy that's been the top goal scorer on the Prem last season? It is going to be difficult for Hearts, but again, for Naismith, you can see what he's trying to do in these games, and it works. I mean, you just get very, very unlucky against Rangers. I'd argue you probably should have got the 3 points in that game, but no, I think it's a good plan that Hearts have, a very good coaching team, and to be honest, I can see Hearts getting third place for the next couple of seasons.
I really hope so. The thing that I'm most pleased about, Mikey, for me as a Hearts fan, is the fact that our recruitment's been very good. And what I like is the fact we did business early. You know, last season, our first signing was the 14th of July, and it was Michael McGovern, a third choice keeper that ever played. This season, we got business done very early. We still got Salazar to come in as well from Colombia. He should be announced next week. So I think the recruitment at Hearts, I know you're not going to like saying this, but I think the recruitment's very good. And I do like the fact that, like, James Penrith, I thought was great last week. I've watched him for Livingston, watched him for Partick. He's a very good player. Gerald Taylor got a lot of praise last week, rightly so. But James Penrith went under the radar last week. I thought he was brilliant against Rangers last week.
Yeah, and I think that I guess maybe the problem with the old firm teams sometimes is that they're very reluctant to go for players inside of Scotland, and we've seen it over the last few years, which is maybe the reason why there's sometimes a lot more flops at those teams, because they're not bringing in known entities. When you're a team like Hearts or Hibs or Aberdeen, or I think what Hibs should have done a few seasons ago, but would have stamped down third place for a few years, is bringing in that SPFL experience, which will get you points regardless of who you are. And I think that if you kind of balance that with a few risky signings from outside of Scotland, where your scouts really come into it, I think that you can really build a good squad there, because you can try and find a good few players that are going to be known entities week in, week out, and then you're getting some players who you take a bit of a punt on, and if they come out good, then you can make a huge profit off them. So I think the way that Hearts are working at the moment is very positive, and I think that's where Hibs are kind of getting stuck, where we're basically going for players outside of Scotland, majorly down in England, and for example, where not many of them have really came off, and I think what's really set Hearts apart in the last couple of seasons has been the recruitment and bringing in players that are known within Scotland and are known to perform, which obviously will give them more time to turn it around if things don't go well off the start, because they've already shown the sort of qualities inside of Scotland already. And it's kind of the same with managers. So you bring in who've had SPFL experience, they'll get more time because they've done good jobs at other SPFL clubs in the past.
Yeah, and we will touch on Hearts again later because they play Dundee tomorrow. But let's talk European football. There have been games this week: Rangers, Kilmarnock and St Mirren. And let's start with St Mirren because Rob is on. So St Mirren drew 1-1 yesterday with SK Brann from Norway in the first leg. A very, very late goal from Olisanya. We've got a comment here from KG, a St Mirren fan. We're so finished for Thursday. No Olisanya or O'Hara means no goals, especially with Ayunga and Mandarin up front. I thought that SK Brann looked a very good side yesterday, Robbie. You were there. What was your thoughts on the game? And are you happy with the draw going over to Norway?
I think we can only be happy with the draw. I think Brann probably should have won the game quite comfortably. I think with the team sheet, we got it all wrong. Starting Mandron Ayunga up front, he chased shadows the whole game, was never going to work. I mean, Brann were just so easily and comfortable to pass it around the back. I think Olisanya probably should have started the game, but he's going to be the big miss for next week. He is scoring the goals right now. And now that we need to go into next week, again, playing Mandron Ayunga, I'm really worried that Brann will just pass the ball about, we'll get very tired, and then they'll just pick us off in the second half. But looking at the game last night, I mean, they were very, very comfortable. There wasn't much we done. I just felt like there was a lack of getting the ball down and playing football. There was a couple of times where Marcus Fraser won the ball back and he just stand for the ball, jockeying the player, waiting for someone else to take it. I feel like the players should have taken a bit more responsibility in the actual game. I feel like that's when you maybe need an O'Hara in the midfield to try and help you in that situation. I felt like with Smith and Adobe as well, they were just sort of pressing the fullbacks, which was leaving Boyd Munce in the middle of the park himself, sort of isolated. So I feel like we got it all wrong on the night. I don't think they're impossible to beat next week. It's just going to be very, very difficult. And I think if you even look at Tromso, I mean, they're sitting 13th in that same division. And Kilmarnock really struggled for what I heard. So it's going to be no easy tie next week for either teams in Europe. But we just need to go there with more hope than expectation, really.
Yeah, I mean, a draw's not a disaster, Mikey. It still gives St Mirren a chance. And if you look at if they were to get through, they're playing Hundura of Romania or Astana of Kazakhstan. Very winnable ties if they can get through. But I think that was a big goal that St Mirren got yesterday.
I would agree, but I think going away to, I think they're second in the league, which is obviously going to be a very difficult one. And the way that they struggled at home, I don't think they'll be as good away from home. And I think that, if I'm being completely honest, they will get beat. But I just think that over the course of that game yesterday, it was very one-sided in my opinion. and that goal at the end sort of, I guess, saved the result and kept a bit of that hope there. But yeah, I think obviously with them missing quite a few of the key players for the away tie, I think it might be a bit of a poor day out for them. But I mean, I'd love to see them do well, but I just don't think they'll get anything out of that tie. And I guess it kind of just leaves the disappointment, because I reckon they could possibly get something out of the next leg out of the next game if they got there. I know we'll talk about the Kelly game later, but I think that if either side is to have more of a chance of getting through, I would probably say St Mirren, because they look a much better side than Kelly.
I mean, Stephen, do you think, obviously I've probably done this as well as a Hearts fan, but do you think at times maybe we underestimate teams from abroad, especially like teams like these Norwegian teams, because they are decent sides? I've seen it so many times over the years that we go into these games and think we should be winning these games, and we end up getting beat. Do you think we underestimate some of these teams?
I think we do, and I think the biggest difference and my biggest bugbear between maybe the style of play that Scottish teams adapt, and when you see sides from Norway, they're all very technical. They all pass the ball. They all look as if they try and play football in the right manner. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility for Scottish teams to play like that. I just think it's a mentality issue here. They'll get big physical boys up front and just kind of see if it works for you. But listen, Robbie, I think I watched the second half, and I think St Mirren can play better. For all that Brann were good, I think St Mirren can also play better. So to be still in the tie at 1 each, I think it's great for you, because I think with the performance last night, you should be out. You should be out the tie. Brann should be through. They should have one foot in the next round. But while you're still in it, you've still got a chance. And this is why I didn't bite to all these people slating Scottish football last night for the two results on X, because yeah, the results on paper weren't great, but you're going into, I would say more so Kilmarnock's and St Mirren. Sorry, wasn't great, but because Brann a quality side, whereas I felt Tromsø were there for the taking. But you're going into the second leg, both teams still in the tie. So why do we adopt this negative attitude where we write ourselves off? Because I still think it's hard, but it can be done.
I mean, I think Robinson said it before the game. He said to the players, play with no fear. I think there was fear there. You could see it in the players. Some of them were definitely worried to get the foot in the ball and try and run at that team. I think for the next leg, Robinson should be saying to the players, just go out there and try and get a foothold in this game, because for all that Brann were passing it around the back nicely, if we've got a player up there who's committed to running for the defenders, they can have real bother put on them, no problem. I think he needs to maybe play James Scott next week. I think we need one runner in there, as well as a big guy, and James Scott's arguably one of our best substitutions since he's played. I mean, they came on against Hibs, obviously, got a couple of assists under his belt. I think he was good against Vala as well. So we just need to get a foothold in this game and need to have hope that we can go and win it.
Do you think Robinson's plan, sorry Graham, if I can
That's right.
intrude there, do you think Robinson's plan, Robbie, was to keep it maybe 0-0 with 25 minutes to go and then bring on the likes of Olasanya, because Brann have a 36-year-old centre-back in Christensen, and try and exploit that kind of a tiredness late on and see if he can get a couple of goals? Do you think that was his thinking?
I think so. I mean, the substitutes have been crucial. I mean, Mikey, I'm assuming you watched the Hibs game. Are you seeing that against Hibs, how crucial them substitutes were late on to help get us the win? So I think Robinson probably built it up for that. But, start James Scott, let him have a run at that defence and see if we can try and nick an early goal. Why not? Just try and get a foothold in this game, because the last thing we want to do is tie ourselves out and then they just pick us off in the last 20 minutes and then the substitutes are pointless. So go and give them a run out from the beginning and see what we can get.
Robbie, I believe that SK Brann were not happy with the goal that St Mirren scored.
No, not at all, because I think it was the midfielder went down, their keeper booted it out and then we didn't give them it back. But I mean, listen, I don't want to be too controversial, but the Brann players were pretty divey during that game. They definitely were up to it, a definite time wasting with the last sort of 20 minutes to go. So I think we had every right not to give it back. I think Robinson said in his presser that the players thought it was time wasting, that's why they didn't give it back, which I think that was fair. I mean, I don't know how Olasanya picked up a booking in that game, but I don't know if any of you have seen the clip, but the keeper runs into him, and then the referee gives a free kick the other way and gives a yellow card, which now means Olasanya's missing the next leg. So, nah, I don't think there was much controversy in it. I think we made the right decision not to give it back.
Yeah, I can see YouTube comments that going mental with folks saying that Olasanya isn't suspended. He is suspended, but there Robbie has just confirmed that Olasanya is suspended. A brand player started faking a head injury. I mean, the thing is though, this is what I think at times Scottish players aren't very streetwise because foreign players do this all the time. They always do this and get away with it, but we don't do that, and that's something that I think is very frustrating as a Hearts fan, as a Scottish football fan. We don't do that. Mike,
Yeah,
Sorry?
What do you think about that?
I would agree to an extent, but I don't think it's good. Obviously, it's never good on the eyes to see players diving, and I don't think you should really advocate it for the Scottish game. However, in a European tie, you can kind of use the other team's tactics against them. But I would say I think on the list of things I'd rather see in Scottish football, I don't think diving and wasting time in the last minute is one of the best ideas. But yeah, I think that sometimes just in the European games that I will say though on the sort of St Mirren point of view, it's kind of natural instinct that if you're 1-0 down in the last minute of a tie and you're getting ready for an away tie, you're not really thinking of what's the most sporting thing to do at that point. You're wanting to get the goal to get you back in the tie. And if you get given the opportunity where there's an option, then I don't think a massive amount of people would pick the sporting sort of, I guess, the sportsmanship option there. You'd want to go and get the goal to get yourself back in it. And whether that's right or not, it's kind of how people would react, especially if it's in the sort of heat of the moment. But I would say that I think that teams can use a bit more tactical diving and whatever to try and get through in the last minute of games, because you do seem to see a lot of late goals, and especially in the Premiership, there's a lot of late goals. So as much as I'd hate to see it personally, I think that it could be a tactic that teams could sort of adapt. But I think that especially in European games, they can definitely use the tactics a lot more in their favour, especially when you see it so many times when a Scottish team's 1-0 down in Europe, and you just know they're not going to score late on because teams are just going to waste the time out. It doesn't seem to really get added on very much in the European games, so I think the teams can definitely sort of adapt that a lot more. But obviously, from my perspective, I'd hate to see it, but that's kind of just how it could go.
Stephen, before I go back to Robbie with us, do you think St Mirren can get through next week? Because, like I said, I thought Brand looked very useful.
I don't. And as much as I just did a big pep talk about believing in yourself, and I'm kind of contradicting what I said here, but I just think with the Olasanya being missing, is he going to go with James Scott up top? The atmosphere over there is going to be, I'd imagine it will be fairly decent in favour of the Brand. That can obviously spur them on. It's not impossible, but I would be crazy if I came here after the performance last night and said that I fancied St Mirren to go over there and do the job. It would be crazy.
Robbie, what's your thoughts about next week?
I think what Stephen said there, I mean, I try to be as hopeful as I can for my team, but we're going over there and it's just, I think it's going to be the exact same even if we do start doing Scott. I think they'll just casually keep possession. I mean, you see our team moving left to right and the Brand team are just so solid in the shape that they don't need to move. They just know where the ball's going to go. Whereas we're lumping big balls up to a younger man and expecting them to try and chest it down, then you've got three guys around them. So it's probably going to be a really tough task. I'm going to try and get a bit of hope and say we can get this game to penalties, try and sneak a win on pens. I don't see it, but I need to be hopeful that we can go over there and do it. And there's 750 St Mirren fans going over, so try and get behind the boys and try and get that result.
That's fair. Well, that was the Europa League and the Conference League. The other game last night was Kilmarnock 2, another Norwegian team, Tromsø 2. Kilmarnock took the lead through Kyle Vassell on 6 minutes. They went 2-1 down, but a very, very late goal from Bobby Wales in the very last minute gave Kilmarnock a draw as well. Again, I mean, Mikey, it's not a terrible result. I know that we're probably going to say the same thing about obviously St Mirren that we probably will for Kilmarnock, but it gives Kilmarnock a chance. And I didn't think Tromsø were brilliant. Obviously, they got the draw, but I didn't think they were great.
No, I would say though that I think Kelly have been pretty dreadful in all their games so far. They look really poor in Bruges in both of those games, and they look terrible against Celtic, and then they look really poor yesterday. And I just think that there's something not right with them at the minute. Tromsø by no means are a great side. They're sitting down near the bottom of the Norwegian League at the moment. So I think that, although I think that the results are a decent one, I think that the fact that Tromsø have been so poor so far in their season gives them the hope that they can go and sort of win that tie. I think it's actually more chance of Kelly getting through because their opposition's a lot worse. But I think that Kelly so far this season, there's just something not right with them. I don't really know what that is, but I mean, I put faith in Derek McInnes to turn it around because I think he's a fantastic manager. It's just a really weird one in my opinion because there's a team that you can expect to be so consistent and very, very decent. I mean, most weeks they look really good last season, but it's just not clicked so far. And I think that heading away to Tromsø will be a very tough challenge for them. But I think that due to the fact that Tromsø have been so poor in their league, it gives them more of an opportunity than I think St Mirren will.
Stephen, I've kind of got my predictions. There's always that one team that kind of struggles during the season. I've actually said Kilmarnock. I've got them to finish outside the top six. Basically, what Mike has just said there. They're not playing that well. Is that harsh? Do you think Kilmarnock could actually be outside the top six? Because I've not been overly impressed so far.
You need to stop stealing the points that I was just about to make. I was literally just about to say there's always one team that you expect to do well that ends up not doing that. And by all accounts, it looks like Kilmarnock. I watched them in a pre-season friendly against Ayr United. They were poor there. And then Mikey's just listed off the games that they've been poor since. I don't think Cercle Bruges were brilliant, by the way. I don't think Cercle Bruges were... I think Cercle Bruges were a mid-table SP Scottish Premiership side. I really, really do. If you're lucky. And last night, Tromsø are horrific. They're absolutely horrific. The fact that they've came away with a 2-2 draw there last night. You look at the goals from a Kilmarnock perspective, Graham. Robbie McCrory kicks the ball first time under absolutely no pressure for the first goal. The ball breaks and then they play the striker through. That's where they get the first goal. And then the second goal, Derek McInnes spoke about how they were a team that loved to play on the transition. So his players must have been expecting them to have them with counter-attacks, and that's how they get done from their own corner for the second. I thought that the press was non-existent in the first half. So they basically scored and then just dropped off for the remainder of the first half. And the Tromsø are so beatable, but it's all down to how Kilmarnock approach this game. They need to go there and approach the game in the right manner. They can't sit off the game. They need to go and press them. Because I think that will actually be quite and I know before any Killie fans get at me, there was Sligo and Motherwell being embarrassing as well. But I think that will go down as another embarrassing result for Scottish football if Kelly don't go through, because I don't think Tromsø are any great shakes at all.
Yeah, Robert, I think I would agree with that. I didn't think Tromsø were great last night. I know they've got a draw. They'll be disappointed not to win the game with it being solely on that Wales scored. But this is a winnable tie for Kilmarnock over there. It'll be difficult, yes, but it's winnable.
100%. I think Kelly or any of the teams probably have the better chance of going through in the tie. I think what Mikey said about there being a problem, I think could it maybe be a lack of confidence so far? I mean, it's been a pretty rough start of the season for Kelly. They've not exactly got off to the Flyers, so could it maybe just be lacking that bit of confidence to put a foothold in a game and go and try and win it? I don't know, but I think Kelly need to go over there with full confidence that they can get through, because they are playing a team that, I'll admit, that they aren't great, but it will be tough. I just think if Kelly set it right and Derek McInnes gets that team right, I think they can go and win the game.
Come on to some questions that are getting asked. Conzocast says, if you could sign one player from our lower league in Scotland, who would it be? Question for all. Robbie, I'll start with you. Anyone in the lower league that you take at St Mirren?
I quite like Stephen Kelly for Livingston. I think he's a good midfielder. I think I'd take him into the midfield.
Mikey, anyone that you would think you would quite like at Hibs?
I would like either I'd like Liam McStravick from Airdrie looks good, and I would also say I know he's kind of came up now, but Kai Fotheringham was in the Championship last season with Dundee United. He was one that I was really wanting to get. But if I was to go for a lower league one, it would probably be McStravick because he's very young and he looks very promising. Yeah, there's also a lot of other good players down in the sort of lower leagues. Obviously, you've got your sort of Callum Morrisons and your Dom Thomas is another one who looks really decent. But for me, I'd probably go with McStravick just because he's really young and in the games I've seen, he's really good, especially in that sort of I can't remember what it's called, but the lower league cup against TNS, he looked really good in the final.
Trust Trophy.
Trust Trophy, that's the one.
Yeah. For me, Graham, I'm probably going to go either Fitzpatrick for Partick Thistle or Dylan Easton.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick was who I would go for as well. Always been impressed anytime I've seen him. And another question, Sandy, the United fan, who will be the most surprising team in the SPFL? I am going to actually go for Dundee United. And the reason I'm going for United is my surprise is they won't be relegated. I think they'll be absolutely fine this season. They'll be maybe around 8th or 9th, but I actually don't think they'll be in relegation trouble. Robbie?
I agree with you. I said Dundee United as well. I think you'll actually see them maybe push up a bit higher in the table. I'm not saying top 6. I don't think they've got that in them yet, but I don't think you'll see them in a relegation battle. I think that squad's very good. It's got a bit of experience in there, which you need. I just think the problem might be, again, Jim Goodwin. How is he going to fare back in the Premiership? I'm not sure, but I think Dundee United will do good this year.
Mikey, who will be the most surprising team in the SPFL for you?
See, this is a tough one because I think that the actual table itself has been quite solidified in the sort of way that it is in the moment where there's kind of not going to be many surprises. The one I go with is Aberdeen, and I don't think there's going to be a major surprise because everyone kind of expects them to be good. But I think they'll be pushing towards third most of the season, up and around third. I don't actually think they'll finish third, and I think they'll finish fourth. But I think that if you watch any of Jimmy Thielen's games, he's got a real chemistry building with the team. The one thing that I like that he does is he goes around the entire bench and gives them all a high five, and it's maybe not a massive thing, but it kind of shows that there's a bit of team chemistry there. And I think that Esther Sokler's looked quite good in the first few games, and I think that even though Bojan Majowski's leaving, I think that basically they'll be very solid this season. I think that they'll get quite a few freak results. I'd say one of them will probably be against one of the Old Firm. They'll get a win over one of them this season, and I just think they'll be very consistent.
Stephen, you got Motherwell most surprising team?
I would have if our dressing room wasn't like an episode of Casualty. I would definitely have us up there. But I'm actually going to go Dundee. I think Dundee will kick on. I think if they can get their swimming pool in gear, then I think they could go on and have a good season. I actually think that towards the back end of that derby, they would really look and say that they're unlucky not to take all 3 points with the chance that the Curtis Main had at the end. He should bust a net, and I thought they were the team really pressing on for 3 points. So I think Dundee will have a good season. I think Dundee will have the season that everybody thinks Kilmarnock will. There you go.
Good afternoon to Ross on YouTube. Again, go and subscribe to his podcast. It's called the SPFL Lads Podcast. Go and give that a subscription. I've done it already. But let's actually go back to Kilmarnock. So, do we feel confident Kilmarnock can pull it off next week? Start with you, Robbie. Do you think Kilmarnock can get through next week?
I think so. I think that McInnes has to get that across to the players that there's a real chance to go and progress here. I'm not saying they're going to make it through the next round because Copenhagen will not be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but Derek McInnes should go and tell his players that there should be a lot of confidence there to get through in the tie. So, yeah, I think they can.
Mikey, you think they'll get through?
I'd go as far to say that they have to, because I don't think that the team they're playing should be anywhere near how good Kelly should be. Yeah, again, the thing with Scottish football is we really don't help ourselves, do we? We try our best to give our league a good reputation, and then our teams go and perform really poorly on the European stage. But I think that Kelly have to get through this because, let's say, if it was, for example, a team up near the top of the Norwegian league, you can kind of make an argument that an away tie will be very difficult. But as I've said, they're sitting right down near the bottom of the Norwegian league, and I mean, if Kelly can't get anything out of that, then can't get the win out of that, sorry, then I'll be very disappointed. And I think that I would say that they should go out and beat them maybe 1 or 2-0. I don't think they should be conceding, because I think that the team that they're playing have been really poor. And we saw that from the first leg. I just thought it was a really poor game of football, but I guess the only positive they can really take out of that is that they're not behind in the tie.
Stephen, Killie getting through?
If they don't win, it's an embarrassment. It's as simple as that. Killie have to win.
The one thing I will say, and I thought this a few days ago as well, the one thing that I've noticed, a lot of foreign teams, their kind of bosses give the team time off before they play a European game, but in Scotland we don't do that. I think that's a bad thing. I would love to see actual people, it won't happen, but I'd love to see the powers that be in Scotland actually giving teams a bit of time off to prepare for European games. Robbie, do you think that'll ever happen? It's Scotland, so it won't, but do you think it'll ever happen?
I don't think it will. I think it probably should, but again, you look at the Norwegian teams, and I'm not trying to make any excuses for Kelly, but they are a lot of games into their season, which will obviously help a team like that in a European fixture like this. But again, that's not an excuse. Kelly should be getting it there and winning the game. And again, it'll be embarrassing if they don't. So I think what Mikey said, though, like a perfect example of that is we're taking on a team that are up there with Bodo Glimt. So, I'm not trying to say that it should be harder for us, but there's a lot more expectation for Brandt to win this game than we probably should. And then you look at Kelly, and they're playing a team down there, probably should win the game. So I think that's a good example, the two cases which Mikey said there.
Mikey, should the powers that be in Scottish football be helping our Scottish clubs in Europe like other teams do?
I think there's an argument for both sides, because I think that on one hand, yes, because it gives the league a better reputation overall, and it means that there's a bit more respect there, and that I guess obviously the sporting element, you've got more of a chance of doing well in Europe. But the other side is domestically, it would pretty much mess up the calendar, because then you're having to postpone games or just move them further back. And we've already got very cramped periods of the season where you've got, just look at the Christmas period, for example, where you're playing 5 or 6 times a month. Maybe not even that, maybe like 6 or 7 times a month. And we don't really want that happening every few months, because sometimes at Christmas, we talk about the sort of injury problems that teams have. I think that by postponing games and moving them to different times of the season, I think that as it is, the Scottish calendar is quite sort of crammed in as it is. We've got a lot of competitions and a lot of teams have a lot to deal with. And I think postponing games and moving them to different times just completely messes up the schedule of the season. And my argument would be that maybe it has even more of a detrimental effect, because you postpone one game, then you have a European game, and you're having to play 2 games before that, or you're postponing it to play more games around the Christmas period where the players are getting injured, and then by that logic, then the teams that have potentially got further in Europe are having to play even more games before that. So I think that I think there possibly could be a way to bypass it, but I would have no idea how you would. But there is 2 sides to it, in my opinion.
Stephen, you got thoughts on that about us actually maybe helping Scottish clubs in Europe more than we do?
One argument you could have made, but it's been scuppered now with the League Cup, is kind of if you bring the season forward a month and you play the games in July, so that it's then not having an impact on you by the time that you get to. And then that way teams are kind of in the group, but then there's argument how much time off do they get before the end of that season between the start and next. So is the weather in Scotland conducive to allow us to do that? That's my only biggest question around it, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is at all. You're talking a situation where you maybe get to with the fixtures that Mikey mentioned around the Christmas period. You've got League Cup fixtures. You're talking around maybe getting these games played in March, games that should have been played at the start of the season, February to March. So, is it possible? Yes, you can squeeze it in, but the minute that if we do it and you don't see an improvement in results, people will just want it changed back to the way it is anyway. So,
can I also come in on something? I think that the point that you can kind of make is obviously just try and squeeze it in, but then again, it's not just the team in Europe that's affecting; it's also affecting the team they're playing. And then you have to look at when that other team's playing, and then when you look at when that team's playing, you see who they're. It makes a huge domino effect where as soon as you postpone one game, you have to pick a certain specific time for it, and then you can't have it overlapping with other teams' fixtures. Well, maybe not overlapping, but within sort of a 2-day period of another team's fixtures. It has to be that 3-day window at least. And I think that it creates more harm than good, especially for the fans, when you create a fixture list before a season that just doesn't get followed at all. Fans will buy season tickets when they can't go to, let's say they're on holiday for Christmas, which a lot of families are. If you're then squeezing all these games into the Christmas period, which is already quite a large chunk of the season if you look at it takes you from around about maybe match day 12 to sort of match day 20 something. If you're missing 5-6 games out of your season ticket, then is it fully worth it if you're missing so many, home games? I think it's not only difficult for the fans, but for the clubs and for basically everyone around it. I think that there's a very difficult debate to sort of get through, because even if you're stripping everything back from the sporting element, you need to sort of put them into very specific places where it's not going to impact teams, and that's very, very rarely possible.
Can I make another point? We're talking about squeezing them in, and that's before you even factor in any potential postponements that there may be. So I think just stick with the status quo. I think it's up to us to look at what we're doing at grassroots level to kind of improve the standard to allow us to play better in Europe. Or you completely change it and you have summer football. That's your two options.
Well, the other team that was in European action this week was Rangers in the Champions League qualifier. They played Dynamo Kiev and got a 1-1 draw, a lot of late goals this time. Through Cyril Dessers gave Rangers a draw to take back to Hampden, which still sounds really weird. Robbie, thoughts on that game? Decent result for Rangers?
I think any result away that isn't a loss is a good result. I just feel like, again, you look at the Rangers team sheet and you're seeing Scott Wright and Ross McCausland, and a Rangers team sheet when it's meant to be the rebuild era. I mean, how much longer can Rangers go playing players like that? I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Ross McCausland. I don't think he's quite ready for that level yet. I think maybe Rangers should try and loan him out, get him some game time. But, it is a good result in the circumstances. I just think gone at home to Hampden, it'll no doubt be a tough game for them. Obviously, Kiev will be looking to come and try and get the result as they did last round, because I'm trying to put 9 goals past the last opponent. So I think it'll be a tough game for Rangers, but how much longer is these type of team sheets going to be where you're having players like Scott Wright and Ross McCausland in a team that's meant to be a rebuild team?
It's a fair point, Mick. I mean, obviously we played Rangers last week and I didn't think they were brilliant. And Robbie's right. The fact that Scott Wright is still on that team sheet, they were trying to get rid of him not that long ago. But it's not a bad result for Rangers away from home, getting that very, very last-minute goal. I did think Kiev looked dangerous, especially obviously Yarmolenko and all the quality he's got. But Robbie's right. You look at that team sheet, that needs strengthened, because the fact that Scott Wright is still starting now, it's not really great for Rangers, is it?
I mean, I could go on for hours and hours about Rangers. I've gone over it a lot and I've gone over it quite a lot. And the point I'd like to sort of make is that if you look at Rangers incomings, a lot of them are sort of under the age of 21. And for a team that desperately needs a rebuild to win a league, you're not going to win a league by signing a 19-year-old from AC Milan who's never played a senior game in his life. That's just basically asking for you to end up... They're signing players 5 years in the future when Rangers give you 1 year maximum to get things right. And I mean, they've signed that Cherny boy who I guess he's old enough and sort of mature enough to get ready to play. But they've spent a huge chunk of their budget on that Hamza Gamani guy from Morocco who he's a massive risk that Rangers don't need to take. They've hugely strengthened their squad? No, because none of them are going to play. So then you're having to bring in these players. I mean, the Rangers team sheet was embarrassing in my opinion. Whatever night they were playing, I can't remember now. For a team who have obviously had the previous successes in Europe, when you're playing Scott Wright, Ross McCausland, when it's meant to be the time where the manager's changing things, when he clearly hasn't changed a lot at all, really. It'd be infuriating as a Rangers fan to see it, because they're signing players for, as I've said, 3-4 years in the future when the manager's not going to get that if results don't turn around. And I don't have any real confidence that the results will turn around. So they keep sort of backing themselves into a corner where they're trying to start a rebuild and then it's not working because the manager's not getting enough time. Then he's signing players that should be coming into the sort of time to play for the club 3-4 years down the line, and then it just ends up kind of repeating itself. But on the game itself, I thought that obviously Dynamo Kiev looked very positive. Rangers held in enough until the last minute, obviously, to get their goal. And I think going back to Hampden, which, I mean, unfortunately for them, isn't even really a home tie. I know they'll have the home fans behind them, but they're not playing at their home ground. So it's almost as if they're playing sort of two away games in that sense, where they don't really have that real backing. But I mean, the fans will be there, they'll be right behind them, and I do anticipate them to win the game. I just think that it's been a very, very sort of turbulent time at Rangers at the moment. So yeah, I think to get a result, to get any sort of result away from home was, I guess, one positive. But I mean, if you're looking at the situation Ukraine are in at the moment, with obviously we all know what's going on there, and they're not even playing at home. I mean, let's be honest, Rangers should be beating them, and the situation Rangers are in at the moment is definitely not a positive one. However well people will try and turn it in the Rangers board or whoever.
Collins going out of blood balling again here, because he says Rangers could have signed Shanks for 5 million and they signed the Moroccan guy who's already injured for 2.5 million. I hope Keith Jackson's not watching this, but yet again he's mouthed off again about Rangers going for Shanklin. That won't happen. I've said that so many times, that won't happen. But I mean, Rangers on Tuesday, Stephen, actually did play some decent stuff. I think they probably did deserve the draw. But I said this last week, I do just wonder, playing at Hampden could be a massive, massive issue.
No, I think it will be. I think we spoke last week about the impact that it had on Celtic when they played at Hampden in the 90s. They finished 4th that season. I know Rangers aren't going to be there for the season. I do think they'll be there longer than October, by the way, if developments at Ibrox are anything to go by. But the thing that you need to take into consideration with Hampden is that you're miles away from the pitch. So you're not going to get that kind of same feeling that you get at Ibrox, where you feel like the crowd are right on top of you. You feel like it's a cauldron. You're not going to get it. That's one of the biggest gripes that any Scotland fans have with Hampden, is how far away you are from the park. So I think it's a very open game that either side can win. I mean, you look at Dinamo, they're having to play the game in Poland, when they would usually have 70,000 supporting them in Kiev at their home stadium. That would have been a huge blow for them. But as Mikey said, we all know the situation that's happening in Ukraine at the moment, so it's perfectly understandable why the game was played in Poland. I do think they'll struggle. I think that Dinamo will carry a threat. I think if Dinamo can come out and get an early goal, I think there's that much toxicity around Ibrox other than Rangers, because they don't have a stadium at the minute. There's that much toxicity around the club that fans will be straight on the players' backs. I mean, you just need to take one look at social media and see how much of a cesspit it is surrounding that club at the minute.
Robbie, I think we all know, we've seen him numerous times before, Yarmolenko is such a big threat. If Rangers have any chance next week, they have to stop him.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he is probably the biggest danger man for Kiev, looking ahead to the tie. But, you know, there's going to be huge expectation on Rangers here. They absolutely need to win this game. And if it's going to be a case of another team sheet that comes out that's got Scott Wright in it, I really do worry for Rangers that they might not get through this game. And they will really struggle. But I just think for Rangers, I mean, I was one of the ones that predicted them to win the league before the season started. I really regret that now, but I think there's still a lot of work for Clermont to do. I mean, you look, Proper's not even come into the lineup yet. Someone mentioned that striker that they signed that's now injured. I think it's just been a whole mess for Rangers, and I don't see it going much better, to be honest, going into the season. I still think they've got a lot of work to do in the rebuild, and there's not much time to do it for them. So yeah, I see them struggling.
Mikey, if Rangers do get through, and I think they might just sneak it, they will play either the winners of FC 20 or Salzburg. 2 questions. One, do you think they will get through? If obviously they get past this tie, do you think they'll get through the next round? And the second question, you've not been on for a while. We kind of touched on this last week. Are you surprised that Philippe Clermont signed that new deal already, especially as folk have said, given the mess they're in just now, and given the fact we just mentioned the fact that Scott Wright is still on that starting team sheet?
Well, for your first question, no, because I think the Salzburg will be a lot better than them at home. And then when you don't have, I think the thing with Rangers is they can kind of fall back on the Ibrox sort of atmosphere in the second leg. We've seen it so many times where they go a goal down away from home and then they come back and win by 2 goals in the last minute. It's happened countless amounts of times, and they don't have that. So I think that if Salzburg could run away with it in the first leg, and then the second leg will be a dour 0-0 draw, for example, at Hampden. And for your second question, I think that I genuinely just see it being a bit of a, not a publicity stunt, but just something to get the Rangers fans a bit happy, because they get a game with the Stephen Naismith thing. It provides the sort of clarity that they think they know where they're going with it, and they're confident they know where they're going with it. I genuinely believe if results are poor by November, then he'll be out the door, and he'll probably be pushed out by the Rangers supporters. It's happened so many times in the past, and not just Rangers supporters, but the Scottish media and everything else around it. There'll be so much around, so much negativity sort of swirls around the Old Firm teams when they're not doing well, because the expectation is they have to win the league or it's a failure. I don't think that Rangers will be very good at all, but I think that given the manager a new deal will give a little bit more confidence to the Rangers supporters, knowing that they know where they're going, and they know, well, that the board knows where they're going, and that they have full confidence in him. I've not really seen enough come on to really suggest that he deserves it yet, but I mean, if he goes ahead and does really well and gets the league title within a year or two, then not that I'm saying I think that'll happen, I don't think it will, but if they do, then they'll end up looking like a genius, and they'll get a lot more backing from the supporters. But when there's so much negativity around the club for 3-4 years in a row now, maybe not 4 years, but 3 years in a row now, they're really struggling, and I think that bringing in a new deal for a manager is just a little bit of positivity around what's been a very negative sort of Ibrox atmosphere for the last God knows how long at this point.
I mean, just quickly.
When you go,
sorry, you go. No, I was just going to say quickly, another player that we haven't mentioned yet is Giannis Hadji. He's been all over his Instagram posting that he's ready to play for Rangers, yet we've still not seen him get a sniff of the part. So I think that just sums up the situation. I mean, you've got a player there who probably should be starting over the likes of Scott Wright and Ross McCausland, and he's still nowhere to be seen.
I was just going to say on the contract thing, Graham, I think it's a total PR stunt. I think it's completely to relieve the pressure of everybody talking about how Clement wasn't happy or how he's going to leave this, that, and the next thing. He's not seeing out that contract. He can clip it now. He's not seeing it out. He'll be lucky to see it this season. He'll be lucky to see it this season.
Before we touch on the games tomorrow, just very, very quickly, one more thing about Europe. Obviously, Hearts will find out next week who we're going to play in the Europa League qualifier. It will either be Victoria Pilsen of Czech Republic, or, I'm going to butcher this, but Kirkishkiri from Ukraine, who play in Slovakia. The first leg yesterday finished 2-1 to Pilsen, and that's who I think we'll probably get. I think, Mikey, it's a winnable tie. It'll be difficult, don't get me wrong, it's a winnable tie. I'd rather have them than Braga or Servette. I think we'd be out if it was one of them. Do you think that Hearts can get through that tie, assuming it is going to be Pilsen? I think it probably will be. Do you think Hearts can get through that? I
think they can. I don't know a massive amount about Pilsen. I know that they're from the Czech Republic, and that's basically about it. I don't really know any of the players, but I know that they're an alright side. I've heard some things about them, and they're obviously one of the bigger clubs in the Czech Republic, but I think it'll be quite an even game. I think that especially at Tynecastle, if you can get maybe a couple of goals in, then there'll be a lot more of a chance. I think if you're to put it down, you can't really pick a massive amount between the teams out. I think that Hearts have improved quite a lot, which is kind of put them on the level of these sort of teams. But at the same time, I think that it'll be maybe I think it'll be a very close game, in all honesty, and I think that across 2 legs there'll be maybe a goal in it, and there's potentially one side of me telling me that there's a Victoria Pilsen will come out on top.
Good afternoon to Greg on YouTube. Hope you're doing well, mate. Robbie, obviously for me as a Hearts fan, I'm pleased that our first leg's away for home, and the big thing for me is we've got to stay in the tie, whoever we get. I think it will be the Czech side though, but if we can stay in the tie, going back to Tynecastle, that crowd can have a big influence in that game. And I think Hearts have got a decent chance.
Yeah, I think so. As Mike said, I don't know too much about the Czech team. I think there's a lot more expectation here on Hearts to go away and stay in the tie, because this is one of these games where Scottish sides should be showing what they're all about. We should be playing these teams and getting the wins. That's not me saying it's going to be a comfortable game for Hearts, because I do believe it'll be tough. But I really believe that Hearts over the two legs can beat either of the sides and progress. I just think you have that quality in the squad. This season, I think the big thing is the squad depth this season for Hearts. I mean, the squad that Naismith's built is tremendous. There's so much depth in there that you can afford to rotate your players, and they're still a very, very strong team. So I do think Hearts will get through over the two legs, and obviously having an away leg first will be massive.
Good afternoon to Paul Donaldson. Hi all, just tuned in and heard you talking about Victoria Pilsen. Would be a good away trip. Best beer in the world comes from there. Oh, I'm sold. Just very quickly, Stephen, for me, I think the good thing for me is, and I said this a couple of seasons ago as well, the good thing for me is it's only one round. If we get through that, we're in the Europa League proper. If we don't get through, we've still got the fallback of the Conference League. I'm all right with that. Do you know, as much as I love to get through, I think we've got more chance of maybe beating a couple of teams in the Conference League than we do Europa League. Europa League will be about trips and about money, but the Conference League might give us more of a chance to maybe win a couple of games.
Yeah, and you weigh up that as a supporter. What do you want? Do you want the money? Do you want the glamour ties? Or not that there won't be in the Conference League, by the way, because there's still some very good sides that play in that competition. But Graham, I think Hearts can go and beat Pilsen away. There you go. And I say this because I think the squad now has the experience of playing in European matches. There's players in there who've been there, done it. I think your signings, you've brought in more quality to the team. I think you've got more strength and depth, maybe more creative players in the squad, and I just expect Hearts to get through. And I think what we said about Rangers, about not having that atmosphere at Ibrox, the atmosphere at Tynecastle, as for me, is up there with the best in Scotland. It's probably my favourite away day as an away supporter. So maybe not for the view for the disabled supporter, but definitely in terms of atmosphere, it's one of the best away trips. So that's something that Hearts can really use to their advantage.
Well, let's stick with your Motherwell side, because tomorrow Motherwell have the joy of going to Hampden for the first time this season, even though it's not a League Cup or a Scottish Cup semi-final or final. You take on Rangers tomorrow at Hampden Park, 3 o'clock kickoff. You have a lot of injuries, and you've got about 8 players out. You drew 0-0 with Ross County last week. Myself and Alistair did a review last week of the game, and Motherwell had enough chances to win that game. Ross Laidlaw was outstanding last week. Great performance from him. What are you expecting tomorrow at Hampden?
Expecting a doing, to be honest. I don't think Rangers are great either. See, if you're going here with a full squad, I'm going there and I'm saying we can get something, but you look at the injuries we've got: Slattery, Miller, Nicholson, Callahan, Blaney, Katrombis. The list is 8 players long, as you know. It's an extensive list, and we're only 2 games into the season. I'm know that way you need to convince yourself that you can get a result, and I'm finding it very difficult for 3 reasons. 1, the amount of injuries we have. 2, how often do Rangers or Celtic go 2 games at the start of the season dropping points in consecutive games? It very rarely happens. 3, how often does a side like Motherwell beat Rangers away 2 times in the trot? How often does that happen? Or how often do we even get a win and a point? So I just think in the laws of averages, Rangers have got that. We can talk about how their squad's thin, but it's still a vastly better squad than we have available to us. So no, I think Rangers will win tomorrow, but I'm hoping for a surprise. But I think we're going to struggle, not just tomorrow, but really in the early part of this season with the amount of injuries we have.
Robbie, I know that Stephen has mentioned the fact Motherwell have got injuries tomorrow, but we've just touched on it. Does the fact that Rangers are at Hampden make a big difference? Could that actually help Motherwell tomorrow rather than at Ibrox?
I think it could. I mean, as I think Stephen said earlier, in Ibrox you have the fans, they feel like they're right there on top of you, whereas at Hampden, they are so far away. So I think it will make a difference. On the result, though, Stephen, unfortunately, I can't see Motherwell picking it up for this game.
No.
It's just too big a challenge, especially with the amount of injuries that you got. So I just feel like when the first goal comes for Rangers, that's really it. I don't see Motherwell being able to get back into the game, but I suppose you need to go there with hope, and you never know. You could cause another upset 2-2 away at Rangers. You never know.
Mikey, I know that we've kind of touched on Rangers. We will again anyway, but I know we didn't win last week, Hearts, but I looked at that Hearts team last week. I looked at the Rangers team. I even looked at the Hearts bench, and I thought that Rangers team's not great. And we've just touched on the fact they've got a very, very poor starting 11 with the fact that Scott Wright's playing. Yes, Motherwell have got injuries, but Rangers are probably going to start the same team that played last week, and maybe even on Tuesday. They've not got a lot of changes they can make. If Motherwell have any chance of getting a result, and I know this team has talked about injuries, tomorrow's the one, because there's a lot of stuff that Rangers fans are not happy. They're not overly convinced by that squad. Surely, if Motherwell have got any chance, it's tomorrow, because there won't be any Rangers fans watching this. I genuinely don't think Rangers look that great. I honestly don't.
Neither do I, but I would say that, obviously you said, if they're going to win it, then this is probably their chance. You know, it's by far and away the worst Rangers team I've seen in the last few years. Probably since the sort of Graham Murray days of sort of the horror times of like 2018 and so on. But we can't forget that Rangers, it's not like Rangers have never played at Hampden. They play there usually twice a season, 3 or 4 times a season. So it's not exactly like they're playing at a completely different random venue. And if we want to talk about poor transfer windows, I think Motherwell are right up there with one of the worst. I think they've recruited some positive, but I wouldn't say that over the course of the window. I think when you're a lower down Premiership team, maybe not lower down, but mid-table Premiership team, you need to try and keep a hold of your better players, which very rarely happens. But when you do, you need to bring in players that have been there, done that in the Premiership, that are going to be at least a consistent 6 out of 10 every week. They're signing players that I don't think are at all proven in Scotland, and I know that it usually does happen quite a lot where you bring in these sort of outside of Scotland players, but I think that Motherwell have lost their 2 best players and just simply haven't replaced them. I think Motherwell, I don't think they'll be in real relegation trouble, but I think they'll be down sort of 9th to 10th in the league by the end of the season. And I just see that I don't think it'll be a very good game at all. I can see it being maybe a 2-0 Rangers or whatever, but I would say that I don't think Motherwell have had a very good transfer window. I mean, they haven't brought in. I don't think they've brought in a goalkeeper who's. I would actually say that Oxford's probably an improvement on what Liam Kelly was last season, but I think they need to try and bring in someone who's got that potential to be very good. And I think that I would have said Josh Ray would be a good idea to try and bring in, or maybe even a higher championship goalkeeper. But I just think that Motherwell will be pretty poor this season. But I think the Rangers will be not very good either. But I'd say it'll be probably a pretty scrappy 2-0 Rangers win. I don't think it'll be a classic for either side at all.
Stephen, your last 2 games at home, 0-0 Partick, 0-0 last week. But I said to Alistair last week, you had a lot of chances last week. And I think I said this to you as well. I never thought I'd say this after like halfway through last season. But if you had Theo Bair, you're winning that game last week.
Yeah. You look at it, we probably are. I think the pleasing thing for me, Graham, is we look solid defensively. I mean, that's all right. You talk about 0-0 v Partick, 0-0 v County, but we only conceded 2 goals in the League Cup group stage as well. And it was a huge problem for us last season. And I'm always a big believer that if you've got creative players on the pitch, you'll score goals. The goals will come. So keep it tight at the back. The issue just now is we don't have any creative players available because they're all injured. So it's like, that's why, and I get why Mikey's got the opinion that he's got, because it's names that aren't proven in Scotland and names that he probably doesn't recognise. But I'm here to tell him, for watching these guys in pre-season, I'm really excited with the signing of Kofi Barma. I think he's probably going to play tomorrow with Shane Blaney being injured. He's got an absolute hammer of a long throw on him, by the way. So you can expect to see Hammer throwing Motherwell back tomorrow. Apostolos Stamatopoulos, who have signed some
well done.
debts.
You've been learning that, haven't you?
It's the second week in a row I've managed it. Hopefully I don't come on here intoxicated one day, because I definitely won't be able to do it. He scored 17 goals in the A-League last season. Now, all right, he's not proven in Scotland, but I watch YouTube videos. I do it with every signing that we make. And it's not just the goals that he scores, it's his link-up play, it's his pace. I think he's going to cause, when he settles, he's going to cause defences, all manner of problems. I think what we don't have right now, and where I would agree with Mikey, I don't think we have that Blair Spittle replacement in yet. I don't think we have that creative force from midfield. I think we've tried it with Nicholson and Callahan, right? But there's two injury-prone players that we're talking about there, especially Ross Callahan. Ross Callahan missed the vast majority of last season, and we brought him in, offered him a year deal when he's been injured. He's picked up an injury in pre-season, came back, and then got injured again. So he's had 2 injuries while he's been here already. So that's not proving like a shrewd bit of business. For me, I know he's a different type of midfielder, but Alan Campbell's out there on a free contract. He knows the club. He's been at the club. He came through the club. Go and ask the question. Offer him a year deal. Get him in the shop window, and then allow him to leave after that year, and then go and find a Spittle replacement. And I think we're fine because we're not conceding goals. We won't get relegated, in my opinion, but we need to try and find that creative spark.
Prediction for tomorrow, Stephen?
Rangers 3, Motherwell 0.
Robbie, prediction for Rangers Motherwell?
Rangers 4, Motherwell 0.
God's sake, Rob, I don't want to go.
And Mikey?
Yeah, I went 2-0 Rangers. I think there'll be a pretty one-sided game, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think
When you go, Robbie?
I was just going to say this, Dean. I think your point about Balmer there, that could play into your hands. I know he was linked with us before he joined Motherwell. I think, for what I've seen, it looks like a really exciting player. So I think if you can use the throw-ins to your advantage, you can put a bit of bother on the Rangers defence tomorrow. So
yeah, I hope Paul's right. By the way, if Paul's right, my cerebral palsy may be cured come 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. If Paul's right,
it's a miracle.
It will be a miracle if we get anything as well, but we can only hope. But listen, I'm almost writing tomorrow's game off, Graham. I'm writing it off, and we start the season next week against Kilmarnock.
Well, the only other 3 o'clock game tomorrow is Ross County against Dundee United. I'm going to come to you first on this, Robbie. Ross County, like I said, 0-0 with Motherwell last week. Didn't think they were great. Dundee United thought were very good in that Dundee derby. It was a fantastic game of football, a great advert. I thought Trapanovsky looked really impressive, so did Van der Sande as well. And also, I thought the young laddie Thompson as well looked very good. How do you see this game going tomorrow in Dingwall?
I think for Ross County, it was a good point at Firth Park. I think any point away from home for a team like Ross County, who I think will be battling relegation for large parts of the season, is a good point. I think Goodwin should be confident. I think against Dundee, it set his team up fantastic. Maybe that was just because it was the occasion of the Dundee derby. It was always going to be a good game. But I think getting out to Dingwall, it's always a tough place to go. But I think I can see Dundee United going up here and getting the job done. So I'll go 2-0 Dundee United.
Mikey, I again have Ross County struggling this season. I've got them 11th. I've got St Johnstone to go down because they've not replaced Simon Murray. They've obviously lost Jan Dander. I just don't think they're going to do that well this season. What do you think about County this season?
I think they'll be in a bit of trouble, as they always are. I think they'll be bottom two. I think the bottom two is pretty solidified for this season, in my opinion. I think it'll be between them and St Johnstone for who goes down and who gets playoff. But to be honest, for Ross County, they've lost Simon Murray, they lost Jan Dander, they lost Josh Sims. As much as I don't rate Jan Dander as much as maybe other people do, I don't think he's maybe that top level player. But I mean, I think that he's obviously going to be a massive loss. He takes a lot of their set pieces. He's probably he was the most creative player. And they've replaced him with, for example, Ronan Hale, who he looks okay, but he doesn't look as good as Simon Murray. They've got Aidan Denham, who is a downgrade from Jan Dander, in my opinion. They've also brought in another lad, I can't remember his name, but he came in a few days ago.
Is that Chilvers from Colchester?
I think so, yeah. And I think they've improved their defence, though. I think they brought in Akil Wright, who looks good. I think they have a decently solid defence anyway, but I think Ross County could be in a bit of trouble this season, and I think they'll probably be right down in second last or obviously bottom of the league. So it'll be a very tough season, but the one positive I can say is at least the defence looks quite good.
Stephen, you saw firsthand Ross County last week. What did you make of them?
I have to confess I didn't, because I was at a 30th, but I did see the highlights. No, listen, I think that what they do look is they look as if as Mikey said they've replaced their defence. I think Ronan Hill's a signing. I know that you said last week that he's kind of unproven here. But Oxford makes a great save in the second half. It's going in and free kick and he tips it round the post. I think, as always, and you'll see it with Motherwell this season, Graham, see when you're signing a lot of new players and you need to replace and you've got that transition in your team, I almost think you need to be kind of a 6 games into a season before you kind of find your form, get your feet, and that's where the League Cup can be good. But I think they'll be safe because I think St Johnstone are absolutely horrendous, if I'm honest. But I do think that they will struggle because another team that I had down there that struggled was Dundee United, and they absolutely surprised me last week by just how good they were in the Dundee derby. Now, the interesting thing for me is that performance because it was in a derby and it kind of plays itself, or is that Dundee United what we're going to see for them for the rest of the season? Because if it is, I think they can go on to have a great season. What do you think about that, Robbie? What do you think?
I think it depends how they play this weekend. I mean, I think Dundee United definitely have the players there to be that sort of side that they were in the derby game across the whole season. I think there's definitely experienced players in there that can make things happen for them. I just worry that maybe it isn't enough and they do fall into that relegation battle, which I don't know. I think it could go either way with Dundee United this season, but I think they definitely have the squad capable enough to keep them type of performances going.
Yeah, I was just saying that. On you go.
I was going to say, Mikey, I mean, I watched that Dundee derby last week and it's great to have that derby back. What did you make of United last week, and do you think they could do all right this season under Goodwin?
Well, I don't rate Goodwin very highly at all, but I will say that the sort of frenetic pace of the derby will not be replicated every week, and I think that's what Dundee United built a lot of their success off of. So I will say that I think that Dundee United will be fine. I don't think they'll be in the relegation. I don't think they will be in the relegation battle because, as I said, I think the two will be right down there. But I will say that I think the performance could be quite deceiving because you kind of get yourself up for a derby. You know, there's the whole thing where the form goes out the window, and I think even when it's the first game, it's not really representative of the season. I think they will struggle against Ross County. I think Ross County are a very tough side to break down. If they go and smash 3 goals past them, then my sort of prediction will change for them. But I will say that Dundee United look like they've brought in a few really decent players. You know, Trapanowski, Miller Thompson, who I think is out of the youth academy, he looked fantastic. But I just don't see Jim Goodwin being an incredibly good manager, in my opinion. I think that he did some good things in his time at sort of Alloa and St Mirren, but his time at Aberdeen was dreadful. And I don't think he'll be fantastic at Dundee United for this season either. He kind of scraped over the line last season with by far and away the best team in the league. So I don't rate him very highly as a manager, but I think that they'll be just fine this season. I just don't think they'll be as impressive as they looked in, especially the first half of that derby.
Stephen, how good is it to see the Dundee derby back? We've had the Glasgow derby, we've had the Edinburgh derby, but how good is it to see that derby back? And that game last week, especially first half, was a fantastic effort for Scottish football.
Beyond the derby, I thought it was a fantastic game of football as well, Graham. But beyond the derby, just the atmosphere, just to have the fan bases back, to have a club like Dundee United, who you know, for me, when they come to Fir Park, or for you, when they come to Tynecastle, they're going to bring a bigger way of following and help create a bit of atmosphere. I think it's just great for anybody that loves Scottish football and loves going to games. So, no, it's good to have it back. And what a game of football. That first 20 minutes was fantastic, and then it kind of tapered off a wee bit, and then the last 20 minutes was mental as well. So, a really good advert for the game, particularly with no other games being on down south last week. I think it kind of hopefully shut a few people up that this isn't the pub league that they like to call it, and there actually can be atmosphere, there can be quality, and there can be games that you enjoy.
Robbie, just looking at this game tomorrow, how do you see this going in Dingwall? Do you think Dundee United could get anything out of this game?
I think if Dundee United go and play the way they did against Dundee, I could probably see them getting a win out of this game. I think Mikey said, it is tough to break Ross County down. They're not exactly the easiest team to play against. So I think Dundee United can go and get a result here. I'll go 2-0 Dundee United for this game.
Mikey, your prediction for tomorrow: are Ross County getting their first win of the season, or will United manage to get something?
No, Ross County will not get their first win of the season. I think it'll be a 1-0 United win. And I think it'll be Trapanovsky again with another goal, as I think that he was probably man of the match in that Dundee derby, because I think him and Miller Thompson look fantastic as a sort of complementing each other down the wings. And I think that it'll be probably quite a late goal again, but I think it'll be around about the 75th minute mark. I think the Ross County will very much frustrate them, but I think the Dundee United will just sweep over the line in the end. I don't really see where the Ross County goals are coming from at the moment.
Stephen, prediction for that game tomorrow?
1 each, United to score early on, but Ronan Hale to get his first goal in front of the jail end and a draw.
I'm going 2-1 United. I think United might just sneak this tomorrow. The 5:30 game tomorrow, the first live game on Premier Sports. Well done, Premier Sports. Didn't think I'd be saying that, but well played. Dundee against Hearts, 5:30 kickoff. Looking forward to this one. Should be a decent game.
Can't wait.
Quite a few 3-2 games last season, but Hearts managed to win. But a decent game tomorrow, I think, Robbie. What's your thoughts on this one?
I think Hearts should go there full of confidence after that game against Rangers. I think with the creative players that Hearts have in that team, Bliss, Bitlanga and Danda, whatever one of them starts, it's going to cause Dundee some real problems. And I don't like writing teams off, and I just think Dundee will fall off a bit this season compared to what they were last season. I just think that's maybe with other teams in the league getting a bit stronger. But don't take away from that some of Dundee's players. I mean, there is creative players in there that can cause them real problems. So I think this will be a real good game. Well done to Premier Sports for getting this one on the TV. It's the first game. I think this is a brilliant game to have on the TV. So I think it could be a real interesting game for both sides.
Mikey, I saw today that Dundee have rejected a second offer from Hibs for Luke McKowen. I take it some of you would actually love it at Hibs.
Yeah, yes, and I think that I'd take anyone at Hibs anymore because we are gash. But no, I think that Dundee United, not even Dundee United. I think that Dundee it'd be very impressive if they kept hold of McKowen, because he's looked fantastic in all honesty. And I thought that last season I actually expected Lyle Cameron to be the better out of the two players. I think that Lyle Cameron is a very underrated player, but I just think that with McKowen, if Dundee can keep hold of him, then they will be much better off for it. And I mean, just with the Dundee team, I think that they've taken a step backwards, unfortunately for them. I think that they built a lot of their success on their road deals last season. They had obviously Donnelly, they had Boateng in the midfield. Obviously, Owen Beck was by far and away their best player in my opinion last season. And I think that this season will be a bit tricky for them to replicate that. I don't think they'll be getting top six. They'll be around about sort of 8th, or maybe even a bit lower, but I'd say probably 8th. But even England looks a good player, I'll say that. And they have brought in another few players, like the Lakesh boy looks alright. But I just think that they need to sort out that pitch. As I've said so many times before, it's looking like their pitch isn't in a great place again, but I'd be hugely disappointed if this game doesn't go ahead, because I'm so happy to see another broadcaster back. I've said so many times that I really enjoyed the BT Sport coverage back a few years ago, and it seems quite similar to that. So I'm very happy to have Premier Sports, but if the first game that they're showing gets postponed or whatever, then it will be very disappointing.
Stephen, Dundee obviously signed Simon Murray, someone that seems to cause Hearts a lot of problems. It's a really good signing for Dundee.
Yeah, he's an angry guy, isn't he? You see him giving the Dundee United fans stick. And by the way, can I just say, I absolutely love to see that. I love players giving the crowd a bit back. I love giving players stick during 90 minutes, and I want them. So if any players are listening to this, feel free to give me it back, because I think that's all part of the game, and it should be embraced. But can I just say, Graham, I'm looking forward to this game more than the Motherwell game tomorrow. Honestly, because I just think it's going to be such a great spectacle. And if we weren't so tight in time, I'd be saying, can we have a minute's applause for Premier Sports, because they're actually bringing what we want to see, what the majority of Scottish football want to see in these games being live on TV. They're bringing it back for us, and I think it's going to be a fantastic game of football. I think it's two sides that both try to play. You've got Malachi Boateng and back to Dundee as well, so that'll be interesting. And I think it's going to be both teams to score, and it's going to be a great advert for the first 5:30 kick-off, and I'm going to give you my prediction now so you don't need to come back to me. Hearts 3, Dundee 2.
Well, thank you to Stephen for a 0-0 draw tomorrow, because he's just absolutely guaranteed that with that prediction. A big build up there. So, I mean, generally, Robbie, I was actually pleased with Hearts last week. Now, we haven't beat Rangers 2020, and I thought last week were a bit unfortunate, but I genuinely think, and I know that a lot of other folk might not agree with this, but I don't care. I genuinely think Hearts have recruited well, and I think we've got the third best squad outside the Old Firm.
I think they've got a better squad than Rangers. There you go. Sorry, Robbie.
Fair enough. But I genuinely think, Robbie, that Hearts have got a fantastic squad. And I think the one thing that I think we've lacked recently, which I think Stephen Naismith has sorted now, is the creativity. We've brought in Blair Spittle, who I think is a really good player. We've brought in Jan Danda, who I know that Mikey's not a massive fan of. But I think we've now got that creativity. We've also got Barry Mackay, who I will say I thought played well last week. So I think we've sorted that side of it. I think we've got a lot more creativity now. And I think we've got a very, very good squad.
I think so. I mean, you just need to look at last season to know how well Blair Spittle and Danda got on at the clubs. Obviously, Danda helped Ross County massively get out of that relegation fight that they were in for so long. So Hearts have built a really, really good team. A team with a lot of depth. You know, you can rotate if you've got them options. I mean, you just need to look last week at Gerald Taylor and realise how good he can be for Hearts. Absolute standout player against Rangers. So I think Hearts definitely have a squad capable enough to. I'm going to just say compete with Rangers this season. I think Hearts can be up at that second race. I don't see why not. The only thing I can maybe see is if you fall into a bit of European hangover with these Thursday Sunday games. But again, that's what the bet's there for. So I think Hearts can have a really, really good season this season and compete with Rangers.
Mike, I know it's one game, right? And I know that we go overboard. I do this all the time. I know that. But for a debut at Tynecastle against Rangers, Gerald Taylor was outstanding last week.
Yeah, and he seriously does concern every other fan base in the league. I can pretty much assure you that. I think that it's incredible how he managed to take the ball from basically just outside his own box and drive it to the other box within a couple of seconds, or maybe not a couple, but a decent amount of time for him. But I mean, just over the course of the game, he looked brilliant. The only issue I would have with him is that he did look very leggy after sort of an hour, so maybe he did overrun it, maybe he did overgo. But I mean, for a debut, it's a fantastic one. The only issue I would have is that maybe it was a little unrepresentative because he went in 100% when the other players were trying to kind of bed into it, and that really did show after the sort of 60-minute mark. I don't think he'll be the best player in the league, like what some people think he is, but I think that
he's Ballon d'Or winner, mate. I'm telling you that right now.
It was a very positive debut for him, and I think that if he goes and plays another similar performance this week, then he's definitely some player. But there's sometimes these players that have a fantastic debut and then absolutely stink it up, which I'm potentially secretly hoping happens, but I'm not going to say too much about it.
Just to bring up a very quick point here, I know that, Mikey, you've mentioned this as well, and I do respect your opinion. I respect anyone's opinion. But there's a comment here from KG basically saying that Danda will flop at Hearts. Now, I know that you're not a massive fan of Danda. Why do you not rate Danda?
I just think because, I mean, when you're the sole output of a team, which he really was at Ross County apart from obviously Simon Murray, his stats did not live up to the sort of hype that he was given. And I think that sometimes when there's a player down in a lower team, you can kind of overrate their ability based on their sort of, I guess, technical ability and creativity within a team. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be all right at Hearts. I just don't think that the way that some people have sort of hyped him up over the last couple of seasons, I don't quite think he's as good as that. Every time I've watched him play, he's quite poor and out of the game. There was maybe a handful of times he really stood out at Ross County last season that I watched him. I must admit I didn't watch every single game, but I watched most of the games that were on TV, and the only game I could really there was just a couple of times when I can't really see much that he did. He was a bit in and out of games, and I don't think that he was the creative spark that a team like Hearts will come straight into the team, which I think that Blair Spittle would do. Blair Spittle's not been incredible for Hearts so far in any of the pre-season games I've heard, but I mean, if he kicks on at Hearts, then very much proves me wrong, but I just don't quite think he'll be as good as people said. Although I will say that he did do very, very well in his first game against Rangers.
That's fair. Paul Donaldson says, will Hearts struggle with Sunday, Thursday matches? It always happens to team in Europe or conference. I've kind of said that as well. That's my main worry. But I do think we've got a better squad than we did last time, so I'm hoping that won't be too much of a concern. But just going into tomorrow, I'm going to go 2-1 Hearts. Robbie, prediction for tomorrow?
Yeah, I've said 2-1 Hearts as well. I think it'll be a really, really close game, but I can just see Hearts getting that edge.
Stephen's given his opinion. Mikey, your prediction for tomorrow, Dundee Hearts?
Dundee 1, Hearts 3.
I'll definitely snap the hand off for that. So let's go into Sunday. 3 matches on Sunday, and let's start at Easter Road. And obviously, I have to start with Mikey. Hibs against Celtic, 12:30. Hibs off the back of a really poor result against St Mirren last week. Celtic beating Kilmarnock by 4-0. But, Mikey, I will say positive news this week. Hibs have made a number of signings. They've got Kieran Bowen from Fulham. They've also signed Nicky Cadden as well. Are you happy with the recruitment so far? And what was your take on Hibs last week?
Hibs last week, terrible. However, I will say that for most of the game, it was actually quite even. I will just say that St Mirren brought on good subs, and we didn't bring on subs at all. So that's exactly where the inexperience of our manager comes in. I think I'm absolutely dreading this game against Celtic because I think that Celtic have looked fantastic, Hibs have looked horrendous. And I think that the one positive out of Hibs at the moment is that we're bringing Junior Hoyle, who I will say has looked very, very good at Aberdeen last season when he played, and I really expect him to sign that contract extension. I will say though that the defenders that Hibs have brought in, I've had some very high hopes for. Ekpiteta had an absolutely horrendous game against St Mirren, which I'm hoping isn't repeated. But I just think that sometimes I don't get it, because you bring in a manager who has zero experience, and it came back to bite Hibs instantly, because when it comes to that point in the game where it's really on a knife edge, St Mirren 1-0 up, Hibs can easily get back in the game at that point if you make the right subs. The manager sat on his hands while St Mirren brought on a player that went on to score 2 goals and completely put Hibs out of the game, which just shows that it's a very tough lesson learned. And I don't think that Hibs are going to be very fantastic against Celtic, which are by far and away the best team in the league. So, yeah, not really looking forward to it.
Stephen, we kind of touched on this a bit last week as well, and I kind of said this as well. Bringing in David Gray, he's obviously a legend at Hibs, got the winning goal against Rangers in that cup final. Mm-hmm. But just how big a risk is this to appoint David Gray as manager? Because from what I've been told, from what I've heard, there was divisions on the board about some people wanted him, some people didn't. I mean, that's not a great start, is it? If some folk want you, some folk don't. Just how big a risk is this?
It's never a good start because he's already inexperienced. If there's some people on the board that don't want him, if he doesn't get results, then they just shout louder. Do you know what I mean? And I was actually going to come and say, my first point that I was going to make was, I really hope that Hibs give David Gray time, because he is a young manager. It is his first time in senior management, and he deserves the opportunity to get his feet under the table and build a squad where Hibs should be. Because let's not get it wrong, it should be Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen in any order after Celtic and Rangers. That's the order it should be. But I think Hibs are a wee bit away from that now, and I'm sure Mikey will agree. I think they're miles away from it, actually. And I just think that they need to say, all right, let's take stock for a couple of seasons. But then again, are fans going to accept that? Are fans going to accept that there may be another bottom 6 finish, or you may scrape 6? Is that going to be deemed acceptable? I fear for them on Sunday, because I think Celtic have started the season like a house on fire. They're electric. They I almost felt that they never even came out second gear against Kilmarnock last week. I think they could have had 6 or 7 if they wanted it. It was there for them. And I don't see any world in which Hibs get a result for this match on Sunday.
Robbie, you obviously saw Hibs last week at the Smaza Stadium. Was there any positives you could take from a Hibs perspective?
I thought actually Hibs the first half, well, I think they were certainly better than us. I thought they had a lot of chances. I think we struggled with Hibs' game plan. You know, they did put balls over the top, which worried our defence, which again, on Thursday really troubled our defence. So I think Hibs, the first half, I thought they actually looked quite decent. There was a chance after we went 1-0 up, actually, I think, with Martin Boyle ran through 1-1. I don't know how he's not scored that chance, probably the biggest chance of the match. I really expected Boyle to score that, but it was a good save for Balcom. But in terms of the second half, I don't think there was much I could take away from Hibs, to be honest. They just looked very flat. It was just long ball after long ball, hoping to chase Boyle up top. So I think Hibs will struggle big time against Celtic. I just don't see them being able to get a result. Although, again, it is at Easter Road. Could an upset happen with the crowd? I don't know. But no, apart from the first half, there wasn't really much, to be honest, I took from the game.
Mikey, you've got 2 games against Celtic. You play them on Sunday and then you play them again in the Cup next week. It's maybe not the ideal start for David Gray, but he has said that he's still looking for more reinforcements. Where would you still like to see strengthened?
Everywhere, to be completely honest, because if you keep the same players as last season, you're going to get the same result, and I think it's happened time and time again. And just the point that Stephen made about would Hibs fans accept it? No, they wouldn't, because Hibs are meant to be the 5th biggest club in the country, which they are, and I don't think there's any real debate about that. I think we're behind Hearts and Aberdeen by a very large margin, and we're ahead of sort of Dundee United or Motherwell by quite a large margin as well.
I'm glad you put Motherwell up there, because I'm sure Robbie would argue, but no, sorry.
But I just think that there's been so many experiments now that you can't keep on with the same experiment over and over again, and it's just we keep going with the same players, and the same players just keep not performing. So we need to bring in reinforcements everywhere. It's been an alright start to that with the likes of Nicky Cadden and Kieran Bowie and Daniel Hoylett coming in, but there's still so much work to be done on that squad. Nowhere near get even top half as it stands because the manager's so inexperienced and the players just aren't performing.
Good afternoon to our Falkirk fan, Alan Risk. Alan, thanks for joining us, mate. How are you doing?
Aye, no bad at all. Very, very excited, obviously, for the game tomorrow. Looks set to be a cracker, and obviously I'm still high off the first one of the season last week. So, aye, all good here. How are you guys?
Not too bad, mate. We will come on to Falkirk very shortly. We've got 2 more Premier League games to go. Stephen, just touching on Celtic. I know they've not signed a lot of players outfield. They have brought in Kasper Schmeichel. They brought in Pelle Bernardo. They will strengthen, I think, before the window. But so far, especially last week, they look very, very impressive.
Yeah, they look electric, as I said, and I think there's a number of positions that Celtic need. I think they need a left back. I think they need a centre back, another right winger, and another striker they can play behind Kyogo. I know there's big talk about Ida coming in. That seems to be close, but I almost think the Celtic aren't buying because they see what's happening at the other side of the city. Rangers aren't really inspiring, so. And I think the minute that Rangers sign a couple, Celtic will just go, here's a checkbook, bang, bang, particularly when the regular money comes in, and they'll bring these replacements in. And I'll reiterate what I said last week. I think they'll win the league by more than 18 points. There you go.
Prediction for Sunday. Let's start with Mikey. It's only fair that we start with Mikey. Mikey, prediction for Sunday, Hibs against Celtic?
4-0.
What, for Hibs?
No, definitely not. I really wish, but it'll be 4-0 Celtic, and it'll probably be 4-0 before half-time.
Robbie, predictions?
I said 5-0 Celtic, and just touch on Celtic quickly for last week. I mean, take away obviously being at Celtic Park, I thought it was a really professional performance for Celtic. You know, that killer team had the highs of last season, obviously getting that top sort of spot in the league. I think to go away to Celtic Park, you know, it's never going to be easy, but Celtic were really, really good, and they just done what they had to do to get the results. So I kind of see Hibs getting it in this game.
And Stephen?
Celtic 3, Hibs 0.
Yeah, that's what I was going with as well. We've got 2 more games to go. We'll fire through them a quick look because I do want to get to Alan about Falkirk and the Championship. So on Sunday as well, 3 o'clock kickoff, Aberdeen against St Mirren. Going to come to you with this first, Robbie. Again, you look at Aberdeen on Monday. They did fly through the Premier Sports Cup group. Jimmy Thielen looks like a really good manager so far. Aberdeen did beat St Johnstone 2-1 on Monday. This performance, but the big news looks like it's going to be Bojan Majowski potentially going to Spain to join Girona. How big a blow is that going to be for Aberdeen if they lose Majowski?
I mean, it'll be massive. We know how good Majowski is in the league. We've seen it. He is a really, really good player. I think Phelan has that squad set up really well, though. I mean, if you look at Monday night's performance, I think looking ahead to the match, Jamie McGrath, he's another one. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. He was the real creative force in that team. Obviously getting himself a goal and assist. So I think in terms of Majowski, it'll be a massive miss. But I think Phelan will be a really good manager. And I think he can get a replacement. Not maybe like Majowski, because I think it's always hard to replace a striker like that. And Graham, you know yourself, whenever Shanklin leaves, it'll be hard to replace him.
Oh, don't! I'm hating it.
No, but I think Phelan will replace him, and I think Aberdeen will kick on and probably get top 4 this season.
Yeah, Paul will be devastated when Majowski leaves. I think Sunday might end up being the last time to see it in Pittodrie. I mean, Mikey, I watched that game on Monday night, and it's difficult to tell if Aberdeen were good or if St Johnstone were really poor. It's probably a mixture of both. What did you make of Aberdeen? And the one thing I will say as well, and it was mentioned on Sky, and I'm glad they said it, the pass from Nielsen for the goal from McGrath was outstanding.
Yeah, it was, and I think that I've already said I think the team's building very well at Aberdeen. I mean, I know that Duke's gone AWOL and he's just not going to come back at all. Majowski's gone, so if you look at that from the outside in, it looks like it's a crisis at Aberdeen. But I mean, like it's not even like they've recruited a massive amount. They've just got a real team bonding, and I mean, Shaden Morris looked fantastic. McGrath looked fantastic. Soklas came into that role and looked quite decent. And I would just argue that I think that Aberdeen are going to be a real force this season. I don't think they're going to be blowing teams out the water 4 or 5-0 every week. I'm not saying that by any means. I think they'll get results over the line though. And I just think that although St Johnstone looked quite poor, and I think that SO boy should have been sent off about 4 times, I would just argue that I think that Aberdeen have got a real team building, and I think when you're sort of 1-0 down in a game, you need that more than if you're going out and winning 3 or 4-0 every week, which I think Hearts are going to be. I don't think they're going to win every week 3 or 4-0, but I think that when Hearts have more of a tendency to go and batter teams, and then when they go 1-0 down in a game, they end up losing 1-0. But I think Aberdeen, regardless if they go 1-0 down at half time, we've seen it in the Airdrie game that they can come back into a game and get the 3 points in the end. For this game, though, I think I'll just get my prediction straight away. I think it'll be a fantastic game, and I'll go with a 2-2 draw because I think both teams have looked really good so far.
Rob, in terms of St Mirren, how difficult will it be to have that turnaround? Because you've not got a massive squad. How difficult is that turnaround from playing on Thursday to then playing at Pittodrie on Sunday?
Oh, listen, it'll be difficult. I mean, it's always difficult up at Pittodrie. I think the good thing about what we've done is, we've took the big players off and gave, some of them bench players on, which, they're strong as well. I think I was actually looking the other day, we have 2 really, really strong squads if we want to rotate them to give everybody game time, which, is only a positive for us. I think it'll be difficult. I think we'll take a while to settle into the game. I think we'll see some shaky legs early on, but I believe that we can go here and get the 3 points because we just seem to be that team right now that, everybody hates playing. I know obviously when you come to our stadium it's hard, but when we go away to teams, we're stunning them. I mean, we done it to Aberdeen last season, we done it to Hibs at Easter Road a couple of times as well. We just look like we've really fixed that away from, which a couple of seasons ago, we were scraping by wins away and only picking up really draws. So I think it's a big improvement, but there's no doubt it'll be tough away at Pittodrie.
Stephen, your thoughts on that game on Sunday, Aberdeen St Mirren?
I think Aberdeen look really impressive. I think they seem to have a fluidity in midfield. McGrath seems to look brilliant compared to what it was last season. I thought he had a really impressive performance. And St Mirren, there's a question mark over Europe. I know we're tight in time, so I won't talk too much. I'll just give you my prediction. I think Aberdeen will come away for that with a 2-1 win.
What's your prediction, Robbie?
I think St Mirren will win the game 2-1. I think we'll just sneak up.
And the final game on Sunday before we move on to the Championship, because I really want to get Alan's thoughts. Kilmarnock against St Johnstone. We kind of touched on Kelly earlier. Mike, I'm going to start with you. St Johnstone, I've already said I think are going to be in massive trouble. They basically signed the Hearts C team. I thought Mackenzie Kirk, when he came on, looked decent for the 6 minutes he was on. But I genuinely worry for St Johnstone this season. I think they could go straight down.
I agree. I think they'll be in a pretty terrible position. And if you just look at the players they're bringing in from the leagues they're bringing them in from, this is players that they're getting set up for playing Championship football. And I'm not going to go on too long because I know we're tight for time, but I think that the recruitment at St Johnstone has been horrific. And I would be stunned if they get above 11th place in the league. Kelly, we've already gone over them, they don't look great either. And I think it'll be a pretty poor game, but I think Kelly will come out 1-0 winners. I just don't see where the goals come from with St Johnstone. I don't think that they've got a prolific goal scorer there at all. Sadibi and Kimpioka, they're decent, but they're inconsistent. And yeah, I'm just going to go 1-0 Kelly. I don't think it'll be a very good game at all.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, I think Kimpioka and Sadibi look quite positive, but apart from that, I don't see much else in that St Johnstone side. And I've already said, I think Levine is the first Premier manager to go.
The only player at St Johnstone that impressed me was Mackenzie Kirk when he came on, and he's on loan for Hearts. He's the only player that impressed me. He has to start for them on Sunday, if you ask me. I think he must start. But I think that they look so poor defensively that Kelly will get the first one of the season and they'll come away 2-0 winners. And it's going to be a long, long season for their friend Alistair and anybody else that supports St Johnstone.
Yeah, Robbie, your prediction for this game?
I'm going to go Kelly 3-0. I just don't see St Johnstone by the end of the day. They just don't look like a Premiership team right now. They look, as Mikey said, set up for the Championship. So I think this will be Kelly's first league win of the season.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing before we move on? I will say that one good player for St Johnstone looks at Raymond Boy at left back. He looked quite good against Aberdeen, I thought. Thought he got forward quite well, but I mean, yet again, it's not exactly going to change the season very much if their left back's putting in a 6 out of 10 performance when the team's playing rubbish. So yeah, I think he's all right though.
Well, let's move on to the Championship. I don't want to keep Alan waiting too long. Alan, again, mate, thank you for joining us. Before we talk about Falkirk, there are 2 games tonight, Ayr against Airdrie, Queen's Park against Livingston. But I want to quickly touch on Raith Rovers because myself and Alice touched on this last week. Ian Murray was sacked by Raith last week, which I still think is very harsh. And I know that they did talk about the fact that results weren't great over the last few weeks, but I still think it's very harsh. As a Falkirk fan, what was your thoughts on that? Because I think most folk thought, I don't understand that.
Cheers for having me on, guys. As you say, the Championship sort of started off. I mean, we all sort of anticipated it to be a tight league with Raith going clear at the top because obviously they're the most competitive side, strengthened an already good team. And then what happens after one match day is Ian Murray gets sacked. I think from the outside, I'm like, oh, you guys, we were a bit surprised. You think a team who are pushing towards the top of the league, you didn't sack your manager after one game. And I actually watched that Airdrie Wraith game, and there wasn't much in it. So it wasn't exactly like it was a horrendous performance that warranted a sacking. I think what Wraith fans would say, though, is that they're fairly split in that half of them are a wee bit surprised and think it's the wrong time. And the other half kind of say that they never really saw a team with an identity and they're quite happy for him to go. But they are also saying that the timing is just a bit odd. Why not go at the start of the transfer window in the summer if you knew that you were going to have to move him on anyway, unless maybe he's been told that he's been given the group stage of the Premier Sports Cup. He's obviously not got out that. Maybe that was his threshold, and then he's started in the league and it's like, nah, enough's enough. So timing-wise, couldn't it be better for Falkirk? And I think Wraith need to do something quickly, and I think a lot of the sort of Wraith fans are saying that McCabe's one of the names they want, but why would McCabe leave to go to a club who've sacked their manager after one game? So, yeah, it's exciting.
This is what I said to Alistair last week. Rhys McCabe was in my head as well. Now, I know there's been talking about Peter leaving. That was at Aberdeen. I mean, as an outsider looking in, who do you think would get that Wraith job? Is there any standout you think would get that?
To be honest, it's just going to be the usual rigmarole of like sort of unemployed managers. I've seen random stuff about Yogi Hughes and stuff being linked in that, but I don't know who's going to go in there. I think whatever manager goes in there, they go in there with a good squad. So Wraith have strengthened, obviously bringing in Hanlon and Stevenson, and they've not lost some of a lot of their key players for last season. So whoever does get that job, they inherit a good team. If they can just get them clicking within a few games, new manager bounce, they could very quickly correct themselves. Because I didn't think Wraith have never performed well against Airdrie in the last few years. So it's not exactly like a surprise they lost to them. So it'll be interesting. But no, I couldn't tell you for sure who's going to get that.
tonight we've got 2 games. We've got Ayr against Airdrie and Queen's Park against Livingston. How do you see those games going, Alan? I mean, obviously last week Ayr beat Hamilton by 2-0. Airdrie beat Raith Rovers 1-0. Falkirk, your team went 2-1 against Queen's Park last week. Decent start. And Livingston beat Dunfermline 2-0. What's your thoughts on these games tonight? And again, I've said this so many times. The Championship for me is the most competitive in Scotland. And I look at that league and think, there are so many teams could win this. Maybe not Queen's Park, but there's so many teams that could potentially win this league. I think it's a brilliant league.
Oh, it's superb. And I think this season, more than any other, when they've taken the big fish out in terms of Dundee United, even a Hibs and a Hearts and a Rangers and Dundee and stuff, there's no big fish now. So you've got loads of teams. Like you look at us in Dunfermline, one of the reasons it's such a big rivalry is because we're similar sized clubs. And I think you've got teams here who each think they can win it. So you look at that game tonight, Ayr and Airdrie. Airdrie have gone through a rebuild. So this is Rhys McCabe's first proper rebuild job. He's got about 13 new signings. He's already got them clicking. Ran Aberdeen quite close. And then obviously he's got off to a win straight away and had a manager sacked for the other team. So Airdrie are looking good. Obviously got Ben Wilson up top. Ayr, as you guys know, will be an even attractive a package in terms of bringing in sort of a headline manager in Scott Brown, chucking money at him in terms of bringing in signings. So they've got their strike partnership of Oakley and Dowds, which they both look brilliant. In terms of just having 2 big men up top for knockdowns, for just bossing defences. Really good players. Obviously, we had Dowds at Falkirk a couple of years ago. So that team, we played them in the Cup. We actually had a really competitive game with Ayr, and if we hit the bar 3 times, they could have scored again. So they create loads of chances. They'll cause Airdrie problems, and they're probably a much more direct team, whereas Airdrie like to play out from the back. So it'll be quite a nice contrast in styles, and I guess another challenge for McCabe to see how he tackles this sort of quite tall, physical Ayr side. So I think that'll end up being probably a score draw, maybe a 2 each, but it should be quite a fun game to watch. The Queen's Park game is interesting because when we played Queen's Park, I think we looked quite a bit better, but I also think Rudden is not Peyton, and they need goals. If you want to do anything in the league, you need a scorer. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Obviously, they've signed Jane Murray, but I don't know if he's fit or if he's cleared for playing today. He's gone on loan from Celtic. I think he's had an injury, played last year, so that'll be really good for him to get a loan spell. And he's a brilliant sort of centre-back option, given they've lost Danny Wilson. So I think, as you say, I don't think Queen's Park will be about there at the top, but they know how to play football. They're at home, so I mean they should be giving them a game. It's a good league. I think Queen's Park are the kind of team that will take team points off teams. I don't think they'll do too much more than that. But cracking league, absolutely cracking league.
Mike, I know you watch Livingston quite a lot. What do you make of them this season and the business that David Martindale's done? Because he has signed a lot of players. Obviously got Ryan McGowan, who I loved at Hearts. What do you make of their business this season? How do you think they'll do this season in the Championship?
I think, I've had a few conversations with David Martindale over the last few months, and I can't really say anything really about what he said, but there is an expectation there to get top 4. I think that the fans know that, and if you're actually looking at Livingston's form, I mean, I know that they went out of the League Cup, but they had 4 clean sheets out of 5, and they've got another clean sheet on Saturday. The only issue I had was that Lewis Smith has looked pretty poor so far. There's obviously time for him to adapt, but the first half of games and basically all the Livy games so far have been really poor. And I wouldn't say they scraped past Dunfermline, but Dunfermline looked like the team that could go down this season. And Livy didn't look very good in the first half, and in the second half they did struggle quite a lot. A lot of the new signings have looked quite good, but over the course of this game, I think the Livy will win 2-0. I think the Queen's Park will be the team that will also be down there near the bottom. They've got a few standout players. Obviously, Dom Thomas is one of them, but I think Livy will come over the line and win 2-0 in the end.
Robbie, do you see a favourite for the Championship?
I mean, when I look at it, listen, I'm a complete outsider. I admit I do not watch near enough Championship football that I probably should. I'll usually work on the occasional Friday night game if it's on the TV, but I don't watch it near enough. But I think Livingston, as Mike has said there, I think there's huge expectation on them to try and bounce right back up. I think they will. But I mean, Dunfermline, I looked at Dunfermline a couple of years ago. I mean, I think it was Goodwin's first game I was in charge, and we actually lost to Dunfermline. Then I think last season I looked at them and I thought, all right, they look all right, but they never. I feel like they were a team that I sort of looked at and thought they could come out of the Championship, but I'd come out of the Premiership. Sorry, but I don't really know what's happened to them. So no, I think it is going to be a really, really close league this year.
Alan, you guys have got Dunfermline at Eastern Park tomorrow. You must be excited for that. And just how big a rivalry is that Dunfermline Falkirk game?
I mean, for Falkirk fans, it's the biggest rivalry we've got. It's the bragging rights. It's two similar sized clubs within, I think, 18 miles of each other. Relatively similar success. We've played them in cup semis, cup finals. It's a massive rivalry for us, and obviously we got to face them in the league, and we didn't beat them when we were in League One with them. So we've got a massive sort of chip on our shoulder where we want to get a result at East End Park and show Dunfermline that we're a different club with better players than we were a couple of years ago. And I think that's obviously on the back of the invincible season. I know Dunfermline only lost one game in the league that year, but they were winning games 1-0, 2-1 on the back of a tight defence. We've won it with a bit of a flair, scoring loads of goals. And I guess we want to show Dunfermline that's how you play football in Falkirk. So it should be quite an exciting game that way. Like Mikey was saying and stuff, there's something going on at Dunfermline. When you first heard about the German owners coming in and the money getting back, they pulled out the funding from the Fife Elite Academy, which was their Fife's regional sort of performance school, because they didn't actually have an SFA performance school there. So Fife Elite Academy was their performance school, if you like. And it had input from like East Fife, Raith Rovers, and Dunfermline were the biggest backers by quite a bit, I think. Maybe 60 or 70% of the funding came from there. And the new German owners came in, they pulled out their funding, so that school's been scrapped with the idea that they were going to fund their youth academy higher. And I think they've done that. They've sort of invested in infrastructure, but you're seeing that there's no investment in players now. I think they've got guys in this season, like, they've got Kane, and the Gwenwa and stuff, but these guys, well, Kane doesn't score many goals. The Gwenwa, he got taken off, but I think he's back fit again. And obviously they had this weird sort of goalkeeper situation. So it's looking like a team that's low in morale, like one win in about 13 or 14. No scoring a lot of goals. But you know what it's like, these derby games. If there's ever a time to get a result and get your side into gear, it's to beat your rivals. And I think they've got it in them to do that. They're at home. They should have a decent crowd. We've got 2,600 tickets sold. I think we're allowed 3,000 in the stand. So we're trying to sell the last few. But it looks like Falkirk are very, very close to selling out the full away allocation. So in terms of atmosphere, it should be absolutely electric. And given that we know that if we get a win, that's 2 wins in the bounce, that's a great start to the season. Dunfermline, if they didn't win, that's crisis time, because that's you losing your first 2 games and everybody already thinks you're going to get relegated. So every other team will start to pounce on that. It couldn't get higher stakes in this.
My team Hearts play your team Falkirk in the League Cup, and I think this is going to be a harder game than some folk think. I've seen some Hearts fans say this will be comfortable. I generally don't think it will be. If it was Tynecastle, maybe different, but playing at the Falkirk Stadium, I think this is going to be a very hard game for Hearts. I really do.
I think it's going to be an exciting game of football for the neutral as well, and for the fans there. I think what's going to happen is we will only change our playing style when we play Hearts, the same way we didn't change it when we played Dundee United. Now, we beat Dundee United 2-0 quite comfortably, could have scored 3 or 4. But the reason we beat them is because they hadn't brought in the new signings properly yet. And I think we're their bogey team now. So they just couldn't get a result at the stadium. I think Hearts are a different team. You play attacking football, you've got that. I mean, Molt's good, but Shankland's a bit different. So in the ideal scenario, you get a bid for Shankland on Friday, you rest him on Saturday because his head's not in the right place, and then the bid gets cancelled and you end up keeping him, but he doesn't play the Falkirk game. So that's the ideal scenario. But no, it should be an absolutely cracking game of football. I think we'll play nice and open. Yous have got the quality to kind of strike and pierce us. And if you do that, it could be a flattened scoreline for Hearts. But as long as we play the way we've been playing, I'll be happy.
Mikey, other 2 games tomorrow, Morton against Hamilton, Raith Partick. How do you see those games going?
Well, I'll say that Wraith Partick game will be pretty much hammering for Partick. I think the Hamilton, I think that Partick will actually really sort of, I guess, capitalise on the fact that one of their main title rivals is in a bit of a, I wouldn't say a crisis, but they're in a bit of a mess, obviously, with their manager leaving. I think they'll really sort of capitalise on that, and I think they'll win maybe 2-0, I'd say, probably. And then the other game, is it Hamilton Morton or Morton Hamilton?
Yes. Morton Hamilton.
I think both of these teams will be low on the table. I think that they'll be maybe 6th and 7th, either way around. And I would say that I think there will probably be a 2-2 draw. I think that Hamilton, from what I've heard, were okay against Ayr United, nothing special. And Morton got a point at Partick Thistle, who I think will win the league. So I think it'll be quite an entertaining game, and I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw in that one.
Well, before we head off, Alan, just briefly, what's your expectation for Falkirk this season? Because I think I've said before, I think Falkirk will be out there challenging. I don't think you win the league outright. I think Partick might. But what's your expectation for Falkirk this season?
I think what we want, first and foremost, stay in the league. That's first and foremost. Because if you stay in the league, money-wise, you get 200 grand or 220 grand for winning League One. You straight away got to about 360 for finishing as the lowest team that stays in the Championship. So as long as you can stay a couple of years in the Championship, your funding goes up and you start breaking even. You can then start to develop as a football club. So as an expectation, we need to stay in the league. We've budgeted for 5th. So the board have came out and said we've budgeted for 5th place. So the expectation is to be challenging for playoffs. And that's what the hope is. If everything goes well and we start the season really well, and as I say, if we beat Dunfermline, get a couple of runs under our belt, then everything is possible, because they might throw a wee bit more money, and they might say bring in another couple of players, which we think we need to challenge. I think we're 1 or 2 bodies short. But yeah, I would say the expectation, challenge for the playoffs, keep it exciting for the full season, and then but the main, stay in the league and then develop.
Good stuff. Well, we're going slightly over time tonight, but it's only about 5 minutes. So thank you to all my guests tonight, to Mikey, to Stephen, to Robbie, to Alan. It's been much appreciated. We are back on Sunday. I think Reagan's on Sunday, so we'll see you guys on Sunday. We are back, as always, next Friday, 5 till 7. Thank you to all my guests. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the comments. It's much appreciated. And we'll see you again on Sunday. See you later, folks.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.